Oh, God. Is it working?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, everybody. It's me.
And me.
And return of the legendary Mr. Edward C. Gobo Bell. And welcome back to another episode of Nothing's for No One. NuMetal round. Which one is it? Is it 6? Is this our 5th or 6th one? Or 4th? 5. Yeah, that sounds about right.
I like my name for this show, which is Edward C. Bell, referencing Burton.
Yeah. Dude, by the way, have you been reading the news, the Fear Factory news?
Yeah, I brought it up to Bill 2 days ago.
Very interesting. I've been following the story.
So now Dino and Burton are starting to hate each other again, which is great.
Yeah.
And there is apparently this new Fear Factory record coming out, but there's a GoFundMe controversy where Dino is collecting money right now, which is a faux pas because if you were collecting money during COVID for things that honestly should be your responsibility for paying for if you're in a band that is making money off making a record and you have a major label support behind you, so on and so forth, you shouldn't be asking for money at this juncture.
They're on Nuclear Blast now, I think, for the last couple records.
Yes.
Or the last one, at least. I was reading, because I read this article, actually this morning I read an article that was posted today, like this morning about like dialogue between Dino and Burton. And apparently Burton's just like coming out and being like, I'm not getting any of this GoFundMe money. It's just for Dino's legal bills. But Dino's coming out and saying like, hey guys, what he said was that essentially they needed to retrack most of the record. And he said that by that time they couldn't get any more money from Nuclear Blast because they already used up most of it for the first tracking. So he's like, this is just to pay off like their drummer who's on the record and like, I guess some other musicians and stuff.
Yeah, he paid for keyboard tracks.
From that dude, from
Reese Fulber.
Yeah, from that guy.
And I get that, but if there was spillage over, say they needed 20 more grand, obviously that could maybe come directly from Dino.
You think he's got it?
I think a lot of bands in that position have money and they still get money from their old records.
Sure. They would make it back, I think.
And I think a lot of bands do that where they get allotted X amount from their label and they overinvest in themselves in order to get the best product.
Yeah, absolutely.
A label's not going to say, just spend, do whatever you guys want, we'll pick up the bill for it.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen anymore because the record, they never recoup expenses, but that's the case.
One of the instances of, not to like go on a sidetrack or anything, but our buddies in Rivers of Nile, that death metal band, they got picked up by Metal Blade per Eric Rutan's recommendation. Yeah. Like he loved the band. He found them on MySpace. He reached out to them and was like, hey, you guys should record a record with me. And they're like, we can't afford it. Then he got basically like helped them get a deal with their man. And then they got management through Metal Sucks. Like, or one of the guys from, I shouldn't be saying this. Cut that out. No, you know what? It's probably fine. But
you didn't say anything too specific.
Their manager is somebody that
you mentioned the phrase Metal Sucks.
It's public. Yeah, it's public knowledge.
I would think so.
Yeah, their manager is Ben from Metal Sucks. He's like one of the owners of it, I believe.
Oh, and, cool.
He they helped. I know him and Eric kind of like helped them get on Metal Blade, but that was the same deal with them. Was like Eric, the whole thing was like Metal Blade's like, we'll sign you, but you got to do your record with Rutan. But like doing a record with Rutan is expensive, and like their contract was not nearly enough money to like cover the whole cost of it. Right. So they ended up paying out of pocket for whatever they could, that the label wouldn't pay for.
That's like a pre-Kickstarter era too.
Yeah.
I wonder, and we're not going to discuss money on here and numbers, but I wonder what the all-in price for Rutan to record that record and records like that would be.
I could probably find out, but
I've heard staggering numbers from high-end engineers, and I've heard the opposite.
Really?
Where the main thing I assume is this: when I hear the opposite, it's them in a production role and the band doing a lot of their work on their own time, particularly at their homes. Mm-hmm. If you whoop ass on a bunch of guitar tracks and then bring it into a producer, they're gonna fuck with it, but you might only need them for a day.
Exactly.
Well,
that's what those guys do now. Brody records everything at home, and then they just bring them over to their producer, and then they go from there.
So
engineers,
a record that could take a month might only need 6 days with a great producer, and it's just everyone doing their homework and bringing it to the table. It's way different now, which is good. It's for the better, you know?
Definitely. Definitely wild shit. Well, anyway, shall we get this kicked off?
My vintage T-shirt.
Oh yeah, your vintage T-shirt. This is a sick one. So we got like the Korn Racing Stripe 40-ounce beer shirt.
Yes. And the back, which anyone could see, is exactly the same.
I like the forest green a lot too.
That's awesome.
I remember back in the day when this shirt probably came out in 1995.
Did you get it at a show?
No, this was
Ooh.
at what would be considered, those stores we speak about that actually sold rock T-shirts.
Like Gadzooks and shit?
No, I don't know where I got it. There was a store there's a store called Rock America that I've referenced here, which was in Gulf Mill Mall, if anyone knows that in Niles. That's probably where it came from. Korn had this shirt with the 40s on it, which is hilarious. And in that era, I remember it was the coolest thing in the world to drink a 40. And I remember saying to myself, that was when I first started drinking alcohol. I would drink 40s. Everyone would just have 40s at a fucking party.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to myself, as soon as I become 21, man, I'm going to have 40s in my fridge. It's going to be so badass. I haven't seen a 40 since then, basically. I don't know. No, I mean, I've seen them. It's just that I haven't drank a 40.
It's not that great.
I don't even, I was probably 20.
Wow. Okay.
And if you are into 40s and there's certain alcohol that only exists in 40s, or usually where it's like a malt liquor or whatever. If you're into that, that's cool. But people in my circle were just rocking 40s of fucking Miller Lite or whatever. It's just 40 ounces of Miller Lite, and it looks badass, But the 40 days are kind of over.
Yeah, rest in peace, 40s. They still make them. They still make like Cobra and Mickey's.
No, they still make them.
Yeah.
The thing
Steel Reserve. Do you get that in the 40?
Steel Reserve?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
see them in the tall boy cams
I think
all
it's
the
only
time.
recently that they've been like tall boys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But like, I don't know, that amount of alcohol is such a bad idea. Not because of the alcohol content. It's because you have this massive bottle that you're only drinking so fast that it just gets warmer and warmer.
Yeah, and grosser and grosser. I hate drinking 40s, man.
You taste more of like the crappy
Yeah.
cheap,
Now to combat that, you start psychologically drinking faster and you get drunk quicker.
Yeah.
And there's nothing like smashing a 40 ounce when you're done with it. It's the best fucking feeling ever. Someone told me recently, it might have been me telling myself this. There's nothing better than drinking a beer and then fucking smashing the bottle afterwards. It's like a great feeling.
Sounds like a Nate Madden-ism.
Maybe it doesn't seem like
breaking
it would
glass. I know that.
Yeah. Sick. Dude, what's your favorite, not to go on another diatribe aside from this, but what's your favorite Pantera record?
If pressed, I will say this. The first 3 Pantera records, I all give 10s out of 10s. So it's Cowboys from Hell, Vulgar, and Far Beyond Driven.
Hell yeah.
I would say Far Beyond Driven is my favorite.
Same.
And
nice.
I think Vulgar is the best one. And then also it's a slippery slope. I have a tendency to rank records on a scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah.
It's a slippery slope if you start doing that bullshit where it's like, this record's a 12 out of 10.
Yeah.
Because it'll never end.
Yeah.
And I do think that those records are 10s out of 10s and should be given more than that.
Yeah.
But if we're not doing that whole thing, they are 10s out of 10s. And then it goes, I'll actually talk about this a little bit when we hit the Deftones record, Pantera, because their longtime engineer, Terry Date, is a Deftones guy as well. But yeah, my favorite one's Far Beyond Driven. And it's this one that sounds the best. It's the one that their kingdom sort of came to them. I think Vulgar was them sort of taking it and gaining the fan base.
Oh, yeah.
And then by the time Far Beyond Driven, the album came out, went to number 1, and which is the biggest deal in heavy metal ever. And then the arenas or shed tours, however you want to phrase them, came.
Sure.
So it was the biggest time for the band.
Yeah.
It also has, I think, the best balance of 2 things, which is Phil Anselmo is a great lyricist. And his 2 pillars, when working properly, are this, which are him with that mentality where it's like that stronger than all mentality, confidence, insanity, that whole thing, UFC before UFC. And the other side of it, which is him in this kooky, whacked out existence of basically being a drug addict and fighting his own internal struggles. You don't have any healthy balance of that on any other Pantera record but Far Beyond Driven.
Sure. Because like to me, not to go on a Pantera, I want to get you on for an entire Pantera episode at some time.
I want to be on.
Well, we talked about him for that our freestyle.
Yeah, because Sky,
episode.
his buddy Sky picked Vulgar for his episode. We each picked like completely different records, but that like I love Pantera is one of the first big metal bands for me that like got me into the genre.
Sure.
Like they were a huge influence on me when I was like 14, 15, 16. But what I was going to say is like, I would agree that Far Beyond Driven's my favorite record. I just like it because I feel like they fully embraced like the tough, heavy shit. And, but I also really like Great Southern Trendkill. But I also think that record like is definitely like unhinged Phil Anselmo.
Yeah,
like, he's
too
totally
unhinged.
like, yeah, exactly. That's the whole thing. It's just like, he's like screaming the whole time. I mean, I love it, but like you could totally tell it's just like, wow, this guy's fucking out of his mind.
Yeah, the best is when that band's working on all cylinders, they're all reeling each other in. And Pantera is pivotal with their sound because it would not exist properly if those four members hadn't all done it together.
Definitely.
Phil Anselmo dragged in elements of hardcore underground music into that style.
Yeah.
Before he joined Pantera, Pantera's
Like
kind
a
of
hair metal band.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
or I mean, a band that worshipped Judas Priest or Van
And
Halen,
Kiss and shit.
Kiss,
Yeah.
which is great, and Phil did too, but he dragged him more towards the underground, and that's
Sure.
where the sound came.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, if you are Phil and you're taking it more towards the underground way and just being a kook and fucking unhinged, it also loses the Pantera element of just being a straight ahead, hard, insane rock band or
Yeah.
metal band, you know? So when they're both pulling each other and they meet somewhere in the middle, that's when it's perfect.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, definitely. Did you catch the Down live stream?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. Dude.
I was so that
Europe. Oh, fucking. This one goes out to Europe. Was he like chewing gum the whole time?
he looked like he was chewing
It
gum.
was very sick.
There is
It was awesome though. Like it
Oh,
was really
it was a good
good.
show.
a lot of vocalists I'm seeing are chewing gum with their live sets now. I think it started with Dave Grohl. Because if you ever
Really?
see Dave Grohl perform a Foo Fighters set, he has like a huge wad. It's not dip. He's not chewing. It's just a
Yeah.
huge wad of fucking gum, and he's smacking it the whole time.
Weird.
And
Probably just to keep him
like
Yeah.
lubricated or
yeah,
whatever.
basically for a vocalist.
But Phil was smacking gum. I think that was a great. It didn't make my summer, but it was one of the highlights of my summer.
Hell yeah.
Watching something that was down doing a stream, which is pathetic. But it was
It's the
so
world we live in right now. So
yeah,
we
it's
don't
the
have much
world
of a
we live in.
choice.
You like the smaller things. So fun, and I give props to those dudes. My favorite moment of the whole thing, if anyone watched it, was they're playing. I forget what song it was, but like they start the intro, and then Pepper's doing the riff, and his guitar fucks up or
Yeah.
whatever, and then they stop the song.
Yeah.
And then Phil goes like it unfolded as if they were at a jam.
Yeah.
All right, started from this part, started over.
Yeah.
We do that when we jam.
Same. Yeah.
Where Gabe will call it out.
yeah.
Started from this part, go. They did that, and I was like, that's so fucking rad.
Yeah.
They're human.
They're
That
human.
was awesome.
Really, really fun. The price was right. I talked with Nate the prior week, and I said, Down's got this pay-per-view coming up. He goes, I didn't hear about it. And I said, okay, well, it's $9. And the way I see it, the band is going to end up racking up what I would gauge as $900,000 from this.
You think so?
Yeah, because he goes, there's no way. I go, let's put it this way. We live in Chicago. I think 1,000 people in Chicago are going to buy this. Which I think, I mean, how many people, 4 million people live in Chicago?
Yeah.
And then then he goes out to the suburbs and go, but this is worldwide.
Mm-hmm.
And they aired it, I believe, at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
And it was strategically because if you air a show at 5 p.m. in like, it would be Europe, for example, it's around midnight,
Yeah.
something like that. So midnight's a total chill time where
Yep.
it's let's get some beers and let's do this on a Saturday night.
Oh,
5
yeah.
p.m.'s fine. West Coast, it was probably annoying for them, 3 p.m. You know,
Yeah.
but either way, it's the importance of airing something and experiencing something live.
Oh yeah.
And I did it, and it was I loved it. Really,
Yeah.
really cool. But I think they raised about $900,000 from it,
I would
and good for
believe
them
it.
because they had a bunch of reunion shows with that
Planned, right?
lineup planned. The one I was going to go to was at Psycho Las Vegas.
Sure.
They were one of the headliners this
Yeah.
year with Kirk, and
Oh, fuck yeah.
yeah, that would have been awesome.
You like Crowbar?
I do. I don't. Out of all those dudes' bands, Crowbar's my least favorite.
Interesting.
I love Worship Pantera. Down obviously is the shit. I give that record Down NOLA, which they played basically start to finish
Yeah, the
in
first
different
one.
orders. I give that record a 10 out of 10. COC is amazing. There's two types of COC, and anyone who's a COC fan knows it. The more original old school hardcore version, and then the Pepper Keenan pseudo load Metallica style version.
Yeah, that's how I've never gotten into Corrosion of Conformity. Like, I've always known about them from the outside, but when I have listened to them, it's always been that vibe, that like load.
Yeah.
And I love that shit.
No, I do as well. Randy Blythe, for example, from Lamb of God, he's a huge old school COC fan.
So they were a hardcore band?
Yeah. Everyone
really?
like look
Was
into
Pepper
him.
in the band then?
No, and then when he got in
Really?
it, they kind of had to get dragged out of that. So they had a little, when Pepper came in, they had a little more of a hardcore influence still doing it, and then they eventually gave the ball to Pepper to do his whole thing, and then it formed a mold, you know.
Yeah. Got to do my research on that band.
But yeah, they've been around since 80, maybe late 70s actually. Definitely
Really?
1980. They were the band when you were in the hardcore scene. Hardcore first came out. They were the band from the It band from North Carolina,
Sure.
in hardcore.
Okay.
So if Black Flag were to go through there, they'd probably play with
Corrosion
COC
of
and it
Conformity.
would go from there. Yeah. But then there's I Hate God, which is a band that I do dig. And Crowbar's on the same level. And then all the Phil Anselmo side projects, Super Joint, I love
Okay.
so much.
Super Joint Ritual.
And yeah, and it goes from there. But it's no more talented supergroup will exist in heavy metal probably ever.
Damn.
Yeah,
That's a big claim.
Down is the shit. And Down did it at a time when it wasn't so easy to form a supergroup because they do a preamble on that special where they talk about how they had to record their first record, and they got the demos together for it by getting together around Christmas because everyone was off touring and they all lived in New Orleans. So they had to make appointments in order to jam and write songs.
Sure.
As opposed to these days, if I want to write a song with him and he lives in California, I just start sending him demos,
Oh, yeah.
sends me shit back. It's a lot easier.
Oh, yeah.
And so going through hell to get that band out there means something. Means something that they're all from the same area. And it's not
Yeah.
remote bullshit as the New Orleans sound. The most important part of Down is they've been ripped off blind by so many bands because that stoner
Yeah.
whatever chug thing that they have going on has been the blueprint for this next wave of stoner rock that came out.
Are those guys all big stoners though? Like,
No, I think it's just they liked Black Sabbath
Yeah.
and bands like Trouble
Yeah.
goes from there, and they just wanted to pay good tribute to it. But they probably just all drink beers
Yeah.
and
Because
just chill.
none of them strike me as big weed guys, but I know Down is like, oh, bury me in smoke, like a weed band, you know?
Probably the biggest stoner in the band's Phil,
Yeah.
and I bet barely smokes weed.
Yeah.
You know,
Ah, man, I love Kirk. He's just so sick, dude. And now we got him commenting on all of Max's shit because Max took like an online
I
lesson
know.
with him.
That was the next thing out of my mouth.
Yeah.
You guys had a crowbar. I remember that photo. I remember seeing it in magazines. If I'm not mistaken, in the back, that's when Sammy from Goat Whore was in the band.
Yeah.
He's in it.
He was in that band for a while, for
Yeah.
a few records.
Mhm.
I didn't know that either. Yeah, Jace was the perfect Sammy in that. That was my idea to take that picture.
I was saying,
we
it
gotta
was so
do
cool.
this.
Great.
Yeah.
It was a great idea.
Because it's such a funny ass picture. It's just like, what the fuck? Like a bunch of these ugly
Fuck
ass
it.
dudes without shirts on. And then
Just
I was like,
rocking
we
the
should do
guts.
that. Yeah.
That was fun.
It was fun. Yeah. And then Kirk commented on Max's fucking
That is
share of that
amazing.
picture. Yeah,
You
it was
should
so
frame
sick.
That is
Yeah.
really great.
Put that up in the spot. Like
It
that'd
was
be
the
great.
shit. Yeah. So that was cool though. But yeah, Max has this like little on and off, like he'll message
Yeah,
Kirk.
little-
Kirk will like
little
shoot him a
buddies
message.
now.
Yeah. And it's just like, fuck, that's
It's so cool.
insane.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
Kirk's always been down to earth. I met him a couple times. Great
Yeah.
dude. He's a short dude.
Yeah. Oh
He's
yeah.
really if I kind of tower over him, which
Yeah.
is weird. And I'm
Holy
5'9".
shit,
Yeah,
really?
he's probably up to like right here on me.
Yeah, so next
Little
time,
dude.
whenever they come through next, I definitely got to go. Max has been like a longtime Crowbar fan. I haven't been, but in passing, I've
Max
always
rocks the
liked them.
Crowbar bumper sticker, right? I think, or something.
But he did. He had a
did.
Crowbar bumper
Yeah,
sticker.
yeah.
He had a lot of bumper stickers, but yeah, he's like the Crowbar man.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they're a cool band.
Very cool.
Anyway, shall we?
Yeah. Get
We're
to it.
New
starting-
metal talk.
Yeah, dude. So we're starting with a band I have never heard before. You mentioning them on this show.
practice.
Yeah.
I was like, have you ever heard of this?
Yeah, I was like,
well,
I've never
yeah.
heard this band.
I'm an old man. I grew up with
Yeah.
all this stuff. Not a band that I was big on, but I do remember. Yeah. I remember
All right,
this band well.
so I wanted to go more of a deep cut this time because I forget what the last one I did was, but I think it was maybe the Soulfly record.
Yeah, it was.
Very, very mainstreamy. Everyone's heard of all those records I've touched so far. This is more of an underground, a deep cut band. Drain STH from Sweden.
Okay.
Some back sort of info on them. They are from Sweden.
Yeah.
They came out with their first record, which we're discussing, called Horror Wrestling in 1997.
Mm-hmm.
So they got ahead of that. They really came on the first wave of the NuMetal movement.
Sure.
Which is important. They had another record after that, came out in 99, and eventually just not even broke up, just ceased to exist. It's one of those bands that just went away in the night. No one's ever heard from them since.
Yeah. Packed up in the middle of the night.
Yeah, one of the... And that happens.
Smokes. Oh, I know. Yeah, there's plenty of bands like that from that era.
But they were an all-female band.
Mm-hmm.
For my money, they are the only... It's them and Kitty. That are the only all-female bands from that era. And all female.
Yeah.
And they're Swedish.
They're Swedish, yes.
The STH is an abbreviation for Stockholm.
I think so.
That's what it says on Wikipedia, at least. Interesting.
The name is something that I never made friends with.
Drain STH, yeah.
Weird name.
It catches you because it's such a weird name because you're like, what the fuck is going on there?
Sweden is that, that In Flames thing where you hear weird names for everything, like dudes named Jens and shit, whatever that means.
Bjorn,
Jens,
Anders.
They all have, which is great. All these girls in the band have whatever this is, everyone. The consonant followed by the J. So it's like KJ.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? How do you pronounce that?
Do you like In Flames at all?
Yeah, I mean, I actually re-listened to, what did I re-listen to recently? Horacle and Colony.
Yeah.
In Flames, I saw them when they were on those tours.
Yeah.
And then they started they did Reroute to Remain, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Or they did Clayman and then Reroute to Remain.
Yeah, Clayman was cool. And I saw them whoop so much ass once at a Clayman show where it was a great tour. Mm-hmm. It was them, and if there's any Iced Earth fans out there, it was them and Iced Earth at the Metro.
I'm not an Iced Earth fan, but they're sick.
And that was on the Clayman tour. And Iced Earth headlined. And that was when one of my, he's not one of my heroes, but I'm a fan of him for sure. Richard Christie from the Howard Stern Show was still on Iced Earth.
He's playing drums with them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he's the only time, it's the only time I've ever seen him play drums live. But he killed it. And that was on Iced Earth's tour for that. A record for that tour was Horror Show, I think, and it's all songs based off of monsters
and shit. Yeah,
which is pretty lame in retrospect.
But
big
time. That was Steve DiGiorgio was on bass. I mean, it was like him, Richard Christie, and John Schaefer, Alex Jones Jr.
Their vocalist at the time was Matt Barlow.
Yeah,
and then afterwards they got So, but
that's so funny, man.
So and then when In Flames did their next sort of sound, where it was more poppy, industrial,
like metalcore influence.
Yeah, then I was kind of out.
Oh, I love that shit too, though.
But,
soundtrack, dude. Yeah.
There's a big connection with In Flames, this In Flames sound to the Drain STH sound, because what happens is a lot of these bands from that area, Sweden, they have almost a Bristol Renaissance Fair element to their music.
Yeah,
very folky.
You almost
folky.
Yeah, you're waiting for a dragon to fly by. Like,
In Flames too. Like all
I know they always have
old stuff. Yeah.
So
very folky
this
vibes.
is very much the Sweden sound. And what had happened was in 1997, this band got the push. Now I don't know which came first, but you probably heard this already. The singer of this band almost immediately. Again, this could have happened before the band broke. This may have been the reason why the band broke, but she started dating Tony Iommi.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
actually, at all.
So Black Sabbath on Ozfest 97 was the headliner.
Okay.
And this band was...
With Ozzy?
It was with Ozzy, yeah.
Okay.
This band was on Ozfest 97 as a second stage band and probably a rotating main stage band.
Okay.
Whether they met there, I don't know. But they formed a relationship. And then it was all... When you're dating Tony Iommi and you're a metal band, the doors kind of open up for you.
Yeah.
No offense. And then I'm not saying your music isn't good, because I do like the band a lot. I really, really do.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't hinder you. That's for sure.
It doesn't hinder me. But I'm saying Iommi, you dating him isn't going to fuck it. And they were able to get on tours with bands when they're not doing the Ozfest circuit. They'd basically do the House of Blues circuit.
Okay.
So they would often open a rad tour, say for example, opening for Machine Head or whatnot, and then
Drain
STH,
Okay.
yeah. Just any big Cold. They did a tour with Cold Chamber. Those bands were just running ramp at that point where they never came off the road.
Sure.
And Drain was never a band that, sadly, at least in the United States, could headline a show.
Of course.
But they would open up Rad House of Blues shows and then get over. They had a tendency to do something which is super cool. They did a couple covers. One of them is on the soundtrack for Detroit Rock City.
Oh,
and it's a cover of a song by the band T-Rex, and they basically totally morph it to their sound, which is that like mid-tempo, like rock. It's
Rocky,
almost it's almost a little faster than like what Type O was doing.
Sure,
it has a similar vibe, and it's very throaty, and sort of whatever pseudo goth.
Yeah, definitely.
They touch upon it. But they would take those covers, and they did a cover of Motorhead Ace of Spades. And everyone knows Ace of Spades is the fastest thing ever. But this is a slower version.
Yeah.
Where it's just more like a moderate rock song. But the record sounds fucking great. It has several jams on it. They, like a lot of Swedish bands or bands from Europe, this is the best example I could give, which was, speaking of Iomi, there's Geezer Butler, who around this time had a record and a side brand called Geezer.
Nice.
And I don't know if you're
I've never heard Geezer.
Geezer did 2 records.
Yeah.
And
is that his legal name? Geezer? Is that his birth name? No.
That's his nickname. That's just, and Ozzy's real name is John Osborne, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Geezer, if anyone if there are any Geezer fans out there, it sounds like kind of Drain a little bit.
Yeah.
And they did one record where Geezer was fronted by Burton C. Bell.
Really?
Yeah. And it is a lot of fucking cool jams on it.
Yeah. Interesting.
I might do that record somewhere down the line, actually. We'll talk about it. So you don't have to go out and listen to it yet, because you're going to be forced to. Maybe even
is
the
it
next
like
one.
a NuMetal style?
Yes. It's like, it sounds like Drain STH.
Okay.
That similar vibe. And the funny thing is, with both those records, Drain and Geezer try to write these songs that cater essentially to American fans.
Sure.
When you hear Fred Durst, who put out the first Limp Bizkit album right around that same time, he was talking like an American to Americans.
Of course.
And it was talking like it was talking to your cousin. There's no language barrier. Yeah, it was easy. Yeah. Everything he said, whether it be stupid or otherwise, made sense.
Oh yeah.
It was a conversation almost. When Drain and Geezer did their records, it was almost as if they were trying to talk that way, and then there's shit that's lost in translation. And it comes across as a faux pas a little bit.
Yeah.
Because they're not going with what you would say, how you would speak in Sweden, and also they're trying to be Americanized, and it's coming across like Borat almost.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's like the Swedish thing though, man. Me, Max, and Alex always make fun of like Soilwork song titles, because they're like the most Swedish weird song titles. Like there's a song on like it was just
off.
like, what are you
You're
thinking? Like on one of their more recent records, they had a closer called Father and Son Watching the World Go Down, and it's just like, what?
Oh my god!
Like, what the fuck is that?
Remember that Soilwork video with In Flames, who we're talking about right now, where it's them in a gang fight or whatever the fuck? Did that happen?
There was Trigger, and then there was the
Trigger and
what was
the first song on Figure Number 5. I can't remember. Downfall? Was it Downfall?
No.
I'm gonna look it up.
Look it up. It's not there.
Yeah, because it's gonna drive me fucking nuts.
So the back-to-back videos.
When you sign
Rejection Roll.
Was it?
Yeah, it was Rejection Roll.
When you sign a band like Drain STH, the one thing you're gonna do, the first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna put out music videos for them, because it's for babes. That's the selling point.
Oh,
you know? And I never got to the bottom of this. Maybe you guys could shed light, but when we're talking about the In Flames and Soilwork videos, I was a big music video person around this time, and the only way to see them was the whether it be Headbangers Ball or Much Music or any of the random channels like that. For some reason, all the videos from America had a look to them, and all the videos from Europe had a different look to them. It's almost like there was a matte finish over the European videos.
And like a gloss on.
Yes.
On the
And
American
I can't
videos.
pinpoint it. And I tried to talk with my cousin who is a dude in film, and I was describing it, and he goes, I have no clue what you're talking about. And I go, well, I don't know how to explain it any better.
Yeah.
That's
And
funny.
if you look at the Drain videos, In Flames, Soilwork, best example I give is Rammstein.
Sure.
Look at Du Hast. There's a film over it, and then you look.
It's almost like it's like the American ones are more digital, whereas like
Yes.
the European ones are like actual film. You know, like they used a real like camera,
A reel to reel camera. You
yeah,
think?
almost.
I
that
don't know
type.
what it is.
It almost doesn't look digital.
It's
you
hard,
know?
man. The thing about that too is like it's hard to go back and watch some of those In Flames and Soilwork videos because once they've been uploaded to YouTube, it was like such shit quality that they don't even have a nice
they don't
version
have
to like
An
upload.
HD version.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
just like, oh, I'm looking at these pixels anyway, so I can't tell what's going on. But yeah, I have noticed that before. I don't know what it is. Like it's
I don't
very
know.
interesting. I wonder if it's like a pop culture thing almost, like a way to film it is more popular
Yes.
in this, maybe it's something
Yeah,
like
I mean,
that.
it's kind of like here when you have like the East Coast and West Coast, like sound, like mixing is
Yeah.
like slightly different from one another.
That's a great
Just-
point.
It's the same thing.
Because
over
right now
there.
I look at getting back to 1997-ish or whatever.
Mhm.
You have Korn doing Got the Life, which looks a certain way.
Yeah.
And then you have Rammstein putting out Du Hast, which they were both equally big songs from equally
Yeah.
big bands, essentially. They look totally different.
Absolutely. Definitely
And
different.
it wasn't a budget thing, I bet.
I'm
'Cause
sure it wasn't a
I believe
budget.
Rammstein had access to
If
just as
anything,
much money
they
as
probably
Korn.
had,
Yeah.
if not more, you know. 'cause
You know,
they're so
Rammstein
big.
was always the band that when they would come to the U.S., now it's caught up with them. Now they're huge in the U.S.
Oh, yeah.
But they were the band that would always open the Six show in the U.S. It was a big deal for them to be here. But everyone would always say they really kill it in Europe. That's their shit.
Yeah.
And
Which makes sense.
It makes sense.
They're
And then-
massive.
yeah, so they were, and also the key is this, which is I would argue that if you get massive in the United States, great, good for you. But it seems like in Europe, when you get massive, you never go away.
Yeah.
And you are a household fucking staple for fucking ever.
Oh yeah. That's
and
a
they never
big
forget
thing.
about you.
Yeah, that's why like you see a lot of, and now like there's all these. I got a buddy. I'm not gonna say his name, but he's a manager, a tour manager, and a sound engineer for the band For the Fallen Dreams. Do you guys know them?
I know that
No.
name.
They're a metalcore band from Michigan, from like Detroit, but they're like melodic hardcore metalcore. Like they started getting big in 2008, 2009, like that type of shit. And a lot of bands like that now almost exclusively tour Europe because they do so much better over there than they do here.
Yeah.
And like my friend Sean, well, his name's Sean. I'm not going to tell you his last name. He's a buddy that works with me. One day I was talking to him about it. He's like, yeah, dude. He's like, now all we do is just tour Europe because like that's where all the fucking
All the
money
money's
is. And he
there.
was like, dude, he was like, look at like some of these bills that they're playing. And I'm like, oh, okay, they're touring with Comeback Kid. And then I start looking into Comeback Kid.
all
I'm
these
like,
American-
wow, there's like no fucking, like they're touring Europe way more than they're coming here.
Yeah.
You know? And Comeback Kid is, granted, they're a Canadian band, I believe.
Okay.
But still, it's just like fucking, it's
Yeah,
crazy to me.
It's weird over there. And like
Yeah.
I actually got to experience it firsthand. And like those people just like love music more.
Yeah.
And,
there's
appreciate
there's just,
on all eras of it.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
they don't just do like we do where it's like, this is what we're listening to this month. All right, next thing. And then they just, we just say, fuck it. We don't care anymore about it.
yeah, and
You
even
know?
just like listening to like I was listening to an episode of Josta's podcast the other day, and he was talking so much about Europe and like touring Europe, and then I started looking. I'm like, wow, Hatebreed does play fucking Europe a lot, and then
Sure.
he started saying like he was speaking about European concerts like in a way where like they almost have their own specific set of like stereotypes as far as metal fans and hardcore fans in Europe goes, as opposed to America. So maybe it's like one of those types of things with the film where it's just like they do it a certain way, like,
slightly different.
yeah, maybe like that was like that style was unique. And I mean, you see like European movies from back then too. It's like or TV shows.
Yeah, like
it's like the
The
same
Professional is a good example. The Professional looks. Remember that movie
goddamn.
with
Yeah.
Love that movie.
what's it? Natalie Portman.
Yeah.
It has
John
that
Reno.
sort of look to it,
Yeah.
similar sort of look. Yeah, you're right. And everything about Europe versus America, everyone has their own way of doing shit.
Oh yeah.
Food is different. Beer, the way it's served, is fucking different. So
Yeah.
why wouldn't film the way it's presented look different? It makes
Exactly.
perfect sense. And every band loves going to Europe, from what I hear, unless they're a band that just, for whatever reason, doesn't resonate with European culture.
Yeah.
There was a band when Bill and I were were in England at the same time in London. There was fucking a band called, if anyone remembers, Dog Eat Dog. They were kind of a House of Pain style band,
Okay.
but had more metal, and it was sort of like Limp Bizkit or whatever.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be able to draw anyone at like Reggie's.
Okay.
Maybe 100 people or whatever.
Sure.
Maybe if we got behind the show, there'd be more people there reconvincing people to listen to me.
Yeah.
But they play a fucking stellar club in the UK, and I didn't go to the show because it was like a couple weeks after I left. But the dude was like, "Yeah, this is going to be sold out. Like they're huge here still. Like we still like this sort of vibe, and we never." Once that band was doing Dynamo or whatever the fest was back in the day, we were sold on them, and we don't forget about that shit. So that's really cool.
That is cool.
We hit it and forget it in the United States.
Oh, big time.
Yeah,
big time.
Done with this band after this one record sucks or whatever.
Yeah.
Fuck that. Drain. So I referenced the videos, and they're touring. They put out this record, which from start to finish, I think sounds
Horror
good.
Wrestling.
Horror Wrestling, and I love the title.
Really bizarre title.
Yeah. It's one of those titles where it stuck with me because it's the only title I know of a record with the word wrestling in it, which is
that's
so
such a
fucking
Swedish
cool.
title to me too, where it's just like, what?
Yeah,
like,
this word and
horror
this word.
wrestling. Yeah, exactly. It's just like, it's funny, man.
Yeah, so the record start to finish is really fucking slick sounding. It's cool. It's consistent. The riffs are very primitive.
Oh yeah.
And they lack sort of a fucking amazing riff. But that was kind of the whole thing back then. Less is more. Let's not think about the riffs too much. The choruses and the hooks are great. Vocally, Maria is the singer who ultimately got in a relationship with Tony Iommi. And the side note to it is they're actually married now.
Wow, good for them.
Shit.
And still married.
Nice.
They're this is kind of the whole thing, which is when you have Iommi as a husband and he's kind of retired from touring for the most part.
Sure.
Like, what are you going to go drain and pound the pavement with Drain STH?
Yeah,
right?
no,
it's not
now,
going to happen.
yeah.
Just chill in
Enjoy your
England
retirement.
with Iommi and you could be done with it. And the band itself, after they broke up, went to not really do any significant projects.
Sure.
One of the girls joined a band at one point called Hansel und Gretel. It was the drummer of Drain STH. Hansel and Gretel. They have like a cult following. They're an industrial type, like Hot Topic type band.
Nice.
I saw them live at Reggie's once. After this record and them doing the Ozfest, they recorded a follow up in '99, which this is where my track that I said to focus on came from.
Yeah.
The record is called Freaks of Nature.
Sick title.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
And this is the song I picked to focus on is a song called Simon Says.
Yeah.
Off that record. There's a reason.
Which is nuts.
It's a nuts song.
Yeah.
They have
the band Simon Says.
Is it a song for a wrestler?
I'm going to touch all the bases. I don't remember the band Simon Says.
It was a one-hit wonder that was like
Did you sing it?
shit. No. But I'll have to link you the music video.
Okay.
Maybe you'll remember.
All right.
Go on.
So the follow-up has the song Simon Says. There's a hip-hopper, like a...
Oh, yeah.
Just...
Yeah, dude.
Everyone, if you're listening to this, stop everything now. Look up the song Simon Says.
Yeah.
It's fucking awesome. But it's a banger, and a couple things that are awesome about it, which is the first thing is, let's talk about the wrestling aspect to it. Any old school ECW fans, so there was a wrestler named Simon Diamond, and he was popular, or he got his push around 99, right around this time this came out. So they picked this as his theme song.
Yeah.
And he would always walk out to this, and his whole gimmick was he was a stuck-up asshole, and he had like a butler. And it was a really interesting character, and he would always talk in the third person. Simon has a problem, stuff like
Nice.
that. So he would always come out to this. So I was stoked on this, but as soon as he walked out from the curtain, everyone would just be on his ass because they hated him.
He
so
was a
it was,
heel?
yeah, he was a heel.
Okay.
But this was a song, and it was really cool.
Did they write it for him?
No, they didn't. With the thing with ECW, which a lot of people need to realize, is they were so under the radar that they literally stole whatever they wanted musically and just fucking ran
Just
it.
played it.
Nice.
One of their biggest wrestlers, Rob Van Dam, came out to Walk.
Yeah.
for years, and the whole crowd would just
suck it, Code Orange. We're doing what we want
now
in this bitch.
Now, if you are doing themes for wrestlers, you sign your soul over to WWE, and they say we're taking your song and doing whatever the fuck we want with it.
Yeah.
Now, Code Orange, since they started doing, they are currently the theme song for one of their biggest wrestlers, The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, and he is huge, and that has exponentially got them bigger. Which is cool. So it works out, you know, but it's just like, I'm sure they're not making residuals every time that song is played, you know?
No. Yeah.
Oh man. I'm like done with Code Orange, man. After that, like Nirvana ripoff bullshit I just saw, they did like an unplugged, I don't know if it was a live stream or something, but essentially it was like an acoustic performance, and they modeled it after like VH1's like unplugged
of their
series.
songs.
Yikes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not sick. It was not sick. It was really fucking hard to watch, and I was just I don't even like this band.
We have a close friend of our band, Malcolm, and he's probably watching this, but he hit me up about Code Orange recently, and he said this is one of the I know he's a huge Code Orange fan. I know they have a huge fan base too.
Oh, they're huge. Yeah.
They're probably the biggest band in hardcore. Period.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, one of them, they were interviewed recently, the band, and he brought this up to me that they said that metal more than any other genre doesn't push the envelope like they should. They're living by example, meaning they're doing a Nirvana thing. They're doing an industrial influence in hardcore, but they're still a hardcore band. They are pushing envelopes.
Yeah.
I respect that. I respect that as a person who has a project that I feel, and I go to bed at night thinking we do the same. All bands should do that, but some bands are the lull of the siren of, be exactly like this band. You could probably play with them when they come through your city.
Yeah.
You could latch onto their fan base. No one could accuse you of sucking because there's a blueprint there. Just follow it, you know, and it goes from there. So it is a risk not taking or taking risks. But would you rather die on your feet than live on your fucking knees? That's the difference, which is if you are not doing your own sound, you are at the mercy of that sound for the rest of your career.
Yeah.
You know, even a band like Hatebreed, where it was a blueprint of made by bands like Sick of It All before them. Hatebreed did their own thing, and they added way more metal to it.
Yeah.
Josta's vocal style of basically being a drill sergeant was deeper, not whiny or like old hardcore, and they carved their own niche. Adding Slayer type leads in their shit. That's a big deal, and that was a risk back then, and it all worked out.
Mm-hmm.
Because there was something that some bands realized, which was hardcore and metal could easily coexist. And now it's so cross-pollinated. They are one, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
You know? But the second thing I wanted to point out about this song Simon Says is it was produced and co-written by a guy named Max Martin.
Okay.
Who right around this time he had a few projects on his plate. One of them was co-writing I want to say Baby One More Time by Britney Spears with her.
Okay.
I'm sure he made some money off that.
Yeah.
He co-wrote I Kissed a Girl, which is Katy Perry's big first hit.
No shit.
He was a big deal producer. He has a catalog which is insane.
Yeah.
And he wrote this song with them. Because obviously...
Is that the guy, like, he looks like a very disheveled person that you see, like, at all these award shows, and everybody's like, who the fuck is that? And
I don't think it's
like,
him.
Okay.
He looks
that's another dude. I know who you're talking about.
But similar scenario where it's
that's like a Swedish dude, I think.
Yeah, where he writes all these hits, and like everybody's like, who the fuck is this guy? But he's got production credits on like a lot of like modern pop bigger than
stars.
any of those people put together, which is so funny.
The funniest guys are the producers that look like trolls that can't be rock stars, but they're just like, it's all up here, dude. I know how to write a fucking song. Fuck you guys. So cool.
They're allowed to come out of the cave. Yeah. People are like, who the fuck is that?
When I'm 60, that's what I'm going to start doing. Is whatever. If my own band's still killing it, great. But at the same time, I will outsource my songwriting skills or hey, I'll produce your record with you, write these songs. But he is a huge producer, and he co-wrote that song. And it's one of their best songs because of that, and it has a very pop radio element to it.
It's also a lot different than the shit on horror wrestling, in my opinion.
Totally.
Like the first few songs when I was listening to horror wrestling, my first thought was like, it doesn't sound overtly nu metal. Like it's there, Like the moments are there. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's like, because at first I was like, this kind of reminds me of kind of like what you said, like a sleazy rockish band, like something like.
I immediately thought of Alice in Chains.
Yeah, me too. Alice in Chains. I thought of even like White Zombie a little bit, like a little bit of that, and like like Typo, like some stuff like that, where it's just like, okay, this is much more like almost like grungy in a way.
They did a tour around this time. One of their biggest tours was with Godsmack, who was on their first record. That tour makes total sense to me.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And then I started hearing more shit. I'm like, okay, I could see how like this was definitely
that other route.
yeah. And then I listened to that song. I listened to that song after I listened to Horror Wrestling, and I was like, oh, this definitely is new. Like this definitely adds up, especially like all the hip hop shit going on in that song. What a weird like crossover too. It's just like, man, like I don't know if I could ever.
Did that come out?
That song came out in '99.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it made sense because everyone was just really had their toes in hip hop combining with metal. Drain STH has 2 records, these 2. And one of them is, again, I've had Horror Wrestling since the jump back in the day. I still have my copy of it. Now, as we were talking about Spotify prior to this, all CDs are obsolete. But I never got my hands on the second one, Freaks of Nature, until I was recording with Pete Grossman one time and I saw it laying around the studio. And I go, Pete, can I like have this? He goes, yeah, I don't know whose that is. I go, mine now, dude. Brought it home. And then what I would always do, and this is something that is a lost art.
I wonder if somebody brought that in like a reference, like what is what we want to say.
Oh, dude, that'd be so funny,
right? If it wasn't Pete's,
it might have been Pete's. Pete might have just been like, fucking take my CD.
I don't know where that came from.
Oh yeah,
it was in your car.
Probably my kids. You could have it.
Yeah.
But I will say this: if you're ever looking to re-delve into a band, now I referenced In Flames recently, listen to not one of their records, listen to 2 or 3 simultaneously. Yeah. And what I would always do when I bring out the one Drain STH after I got Pete's copy of the second one is drag out the twofer on a Friday night.
Oh yeah,
they'd last in my car all weekend. Just play those 2 back to back.
Yeah,
it was sick. And then I'd be done
doing that shit.
I'd be done with them for a year.
Yeah. Yeah,
and then
classic.
You got it.
I did it with like Meshuggah. Like I'm good for about like a month out of the year where I'm just like, let's go, and then I'm like, okay, put them away for a year.
I've noticed that with you guys, like you and Nate do that. Like,
yeah,
it's like, oh, it's Meshuggah month right now. Like you guys talk about it.
Mandatory Meshuggah.
Yeah, gotta have some of it.
Silently goes away. Nobody says anything, and then like a year later, it's back to dude. That one record is just so fucking good. Like
we'll talk about it, or like I'll hear Humiliative, and I'll be like, oh my god,
it just sparks it back
and then I'm just like, here we go, and then it's like just a downward spike because there's like a bunch of bands like that have such a huge catalog. Like In Flames is another one for me where it's like if I listen to one, I'm like, here we go.
Gotta go down that rabbit hole.
Oh man, so sick.
So this record rules, Horror Wrestling. The first song is going to be the most digestible, which is I Don't Mind. Great song. They had a video off it. If you're not into that song, you're not going to be into the band at all. Yeah. But that's a great song. Everyone should be into it. Serve of Shame is awesome. There's just a lot of good songs on it. It's a really consistent, fun record. And it does remind me, it's a perfect record if you're going to Ren Fair or something to rev up your, mentally before you hit it.
Yeah, definitely.
And yeah, I did see, obviously, if anyone's fucking curious, I did look up the singer of Drain STH and with Iommi current days, and she's still unbelievably hot. And
Really?
She's an older woman, obviously, at this point.
Yeah.
Probably 45.
How much older? Oh, okay.
She's
And
probably
he's
45.
like in his 70s, probably, right?
Yeah.
So by now,
Old ass man.
Well,
good for him.
they follow the riff, man.
Yeah.
Is that the fingers he's missing, right?
I don't know.
What's he missing?
No, I think he's missing the tips of
These two guys.
The fretting hand, but he's left-handed. So I think it's the 3, right?
He does have fucked up finger.
Man. Let's fuck up your fingers, dude.
But
you
yeah,
could
good
become
record.
Iommi number 2, and then marry someone that's
bad enough
20 years younger than you, but very attractive.
Oh, all right.
Thanks for listening to this record, guys. I think
it was a fun one.
No, it was cool. It was fun because this was a band that I remember, in that era for sure. You couldn't go anywhere without hearing that band name somewhere peppered in.
I never heard
but
of
I
them.
never really sought them out. I do remember seeing the music video just because I watched MTV all the time, and hey, it's more music. I'll just keep watching. But no, it was cool. It was cool to listen to. I'm kind of glad you picked this one.
I went on YouTube. There's barely any clips of this band existing.
Really?
And one of them was an interview they did, I want to say with Much Music. And then obviously, the questions that were asked. What's it like being in an all-girl band in the metal world? It's like, so it must have just been so hard for them.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Because that was every question. And if there's one genre or subgenre that was alpha male, it was essentially NuMetal.
Oh yeah.
Because every other thing was basically suck my dick. You know, so that must have been difficult.
Well, you had Kitty too, like you had mentioned. Like that's the band I remember that was,
Did you watch the documentary?
No.
It's awesome.
Very cool.
Yeah, I should. I almost saw Kitty once because Periphery was opening for them. In Winds of Plague. Yeah, it was years. I was in high school, but yeah, they were doing some headliner tour. I think it was like, I can't remember. It was like Kitty. It was a weird tour, dude. It was like Kitty, I think God Forbid.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, it was very like Periphery was like a new band at that point. Yeah.
To get their foot in the door.
Yeah, initial dates for Kitty's upcoming headlining run with God Forbid have been announced. Additional support stints come from Periphery, Gwen Stacy, and Winds of Plague. Damn. Yeah, that was in March of 2010. So 10 years ago. Yeah, but I didn't go because I was like, Kitty, nah. And it was at like Mojo's in Tinley Park when that was still a thing. Yeah.
That's a good lineup. That's a really good lineup.
Yeah. It was a cool lineup. I should have probably went, but
Mojo's was the deterrent for me not going to a lot of shows.
Yeah, same.
Which version of Mojo's?
Yeah, exactly.
This was the right before they moved to Joliet.
Okay.
So this was that Small Town Murder, Born of Osiris, After the Burial show that you were there. Yeah. There was that era of Mojo's.
Okay.
That was a sick
You're
show.
probably too young when they used to be the coffee shop, right?
I remember it, but I never went to a show when it was a coffee shop.
I was there for a Small Town show and a Drowning in Flame show. Remember those guys?
Oh, yeah.
I don't.
It was awesome.
Before my time, man.
And then it moved eventually. It moved like 2 more times before it became that one. And then
What was the last name of it? Tree Fort?
The Tree House. Well, now it's the Forge.
The Forge.
Please.
But it was Mojo's. Then
It's the Warforged.
Then it became because Mojo's Chris got into trouble because of that Testament Exodus show. Remember that? They oversold this Testament and Exodus show. I was dating my ex who lived in Joliet at the time, and we were hanging out at her sister's house, and her sister's husband was
mad
like,
metalheads just walking the streets.
Yeah, my ex's sister's husband used to like some metal stuff, like not on the surface, but he always thought it was cool. And we were talking about he was like, yeah, did you hear about that Exodus show? He was like, I wanted to go, but it was a shit show. And I'm like, no, what happened? And then he told me everything. And then literally the next day it was like Mojo shut down, Chris, whatever.
He's
Mojo's
back
Chris
up and running, isn't he?
Yeah, he does something else.
Doesn't he manage Diamond Plate? Remember that band?
I don't know. I remember Diamond Plate. I don't know. I could ask. Jace would know because Jace got asked to join that band at some point.
Diamond Plate.
They're from like Naperville. Those kids.
Yeah, they don't exist anymore. I was with a friend. Oh, this is pre-COVID. We were at a tribute show and it was an 80s hair metal band.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking at it, I'm like, what the fuck? That's the basis of Diamond Plate.
Yeah.
He's in an 80s and when I say 80s metal, I'm not talking Guns N' Roses. I'm talking like Rat hair metal.
Oh yeah.
And he's dressed in the part and stuff. I'm not knocking him because I thought the band was rad as shit.
Diamond Plate?
No, the 80s.
Oh. Tribute. I don't know. Maybe you did.
So yeah, I think Diamond Plate's over.
Yeah, they've been done for a minute, I believe.
Crazy.
Yeah. Anyway,
should have done it.
But yeah, thanks for listening to this record.
Yeah, it was cool, man. It was definitely different. Not something I was not expecting. And like I said, this was something I never would have probably ever heard of for the rest of my life. If
probably
we didn't
not.
bring it up.
Yeah,
I never heard of them before.
Radar,
I mean, back in '99, I was 8, so like I didn't. I mean, if I was listening to any metal, I probably had like a Black Sabbath CD or a Metallica CD.
Well, this is like one of those bands I don't think ever really gets talked about that much.
Yeah.
Because like you said, they were kind of a flash in the pan. Like they came and went right away.
Yeah.
And so, that makes sense that you wouldn't even.
The Swedish thing doesn't help them either.
No,
it's
it doesn't, especially that era too.
I'm sure in Sweden they're talked about way more.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Oh, probably. Yeah. Well, and in Sweden, like in metal, Sweden's known for fucking In Flames, At the Gates, Dark Tranquility, all kinds of shit like that. Like
tons of stuff.
That episode of the Josta show I was listening to, he had Brian on from Black Dahlia, and he was talking about like The Haunted, if you remember them.
Totally.
Darkane, if you guys remember that.
I remember all those bands. Was The Crown from Sweden too?
Oh yeah, they were from Thomas Lindberg was in that band for like a minute. So Lindberg, Lindemann, Jens, Bjorn, Anders.
Now just naming names.
There's a dude named Anders Jivarp. His last name is Jivarp.
That's
it's really
awesome.
sick. Fuck, I think he's in Dark Tranquility. I don't know, but it's like. even all those bands. I mean, that was my shit. Was just like, oh, this is Sweden. Like, and it like to me, whenever I heard like a death metal band was from Sweden, it was like automatically, I'm like, this is probably gonna be cool. Sick. Yeah, and it always was. Like that was my shit. In
Swedish sound.
Oh yeah, I was big on it.
Gothenburg.
I guess speaking of Swedish sound, what's the next record? Deftones, who have a huge Swedish influence.
So I picked this band because I know
this band.
Yeah, okay. Because I know you're not a Deftones guy.
No, I'm not. I could delve deep into me not liking Deftones from this record,
which I was kind of hoping for.
Totally.
That's kind of why I wanted it. Because like,
this is it.
Which is probably like I think this is a record that like put them on the fucking map.
This was a seminal record for them. This is I wouldn't say put them on the map. This was a record. I was living through Deftones at this time. I had liked Adrenaline a lot. Around the Fur was at the time, I mean, it became a classic. Around the Fur has a lot of jams on it, and
that one is like my favorite.
Around
the Fur.
And then that's the second one. Yeah. With Get Away and Drive or whatever, or Shut Up and Drive.
Shut Up and Be Quiet and Drive.
Be Quiet and Drive.
Yeah. My Own Summer was the other big hit.
Yeah, that song's good.
With the fucking music video with the shark is attacking them in a it's such a rad video.
Dude, the last song is like probably my favorite Deftones song next
Around
to
the Fur?
RX Queen or whatever.
MX. It's just that heavy.
RX Queen is on this one.
Yeah.
I like that song.
I think the crown goes to Passenger from White Pony is probably my favorite.
You always talk about that song.
I love that song.
Everyone talks about that song as being the jam off White Pony. And here's the thing with this record, which is, again, I liked Around the Fur was really fucking cool. And I was so stoked. The day this came out, I bought White Pony. And you read the studio reports back then through like Hit Parader magazine or whatever, and you see these what you now recognize as red flags to the sound, meaning we're not staying heavy, we're not doing the corn thing or whatever. And I bought this. This is an interesting record because I bought it again the day it came out. What happened was I was my dad and I've always been really into baseball, and I know it's like pseudo baseball season right now. The Boston Red Sox were contemplating taking down Fenway Park, and they're going to make a new stadium. So in order for them to threaten everyone, people started going to these games. And my dad's like, dude, I've been wanting to go to Boston and check this field out forever. And I'm like, I'm down or whatever. So we actually flew to Boston for 2 Boston games.
Was this your soundtrack?
No, what happened was which was I landed. I believe records came out on Tuesdays, and we did like a Tuesday and Wednesday. Later that day, after we like checked into a hotel, I ended up like at a mall, but it was one of those malls that exist in a downtown area. So it was like a half-ass mall where a couple things. Long story short is they had a CD store, and then I see right off the bat the fucking not only the White Pony record for sale, but the display, which was a big cardboard cutout of a White Pony. Nice. With several, probably 20 copies inside it. Just dropped that day. I bought it.
Wow.
And I was so stoked because I was hoping that I'd be able to get my hands on this record sooner than later.
Which edition did you get?
Yeah, so I bought, this was the first, and I still have the copy. It would be the first wave of the release, so it wasn't the one that has the extra bonus tracks on it. End. Which would be the key track. Another song that everyone references off White Pony is the song Back to School. Yeah,
which was not on the initial
it was not.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. I have to say, and for the record, to anybody listening to this, like, I'm like new to Deftones. I'm not like I've always liked them from afar, but it's never been like back in the day. It was too like when I was a kid. I remember hearing Change in the House of Flies because it was everywhere. Like I remember it was on the Queen of the Damned soundtrack. I mean, it was like everywhere. And I remember listening and I was like, this is moody bullshit. I don't want it. And like even then, like later down the line, I was like, man, these guys sound too weird for me. I don't think I get it. But now as like an adult and I like shit like that, I'm like, oh, maybe I should check it out. I heard White Pony. The first time I ever listened to it was last year, front to back. This is the first time I've ever heard it before. Yeah. Which is insane to a lot of people.
Very insane.
I'm like, when I first heard it on Spotify, I didn't know Back to School wasn't on the initial. I thought that was the first song of the record. And I was just like, oh, this is it. It's crazy. And it's like now that like I did my research on this record, which we will discuss further, but I was shocked to see that. I was like, oh, that's weird. Because I thought it was cool because I was like, oh, this is like, and then I got to the last song, Pink Maggot, and like it's the chorus is like
bastardized version.
Yeah, and I'm just like, oh, this is cool. Maybe it's kind of conceptual because they're doing like this like Bring Back
coming
thing. And then I read
around.
all this shit about that song and I was like, oh no, that's not the case here. But anyway, I picked this album, because I think for most people that I know, it seems to be like the big Deftones record, like the seminal record for them.
People always reference this album.
I think it's kind of what made them Deftones and like shaped the rest of their career in a way.
Without question.
Yeah.
They were at Fork in the Road. And actually, ironically enough, so was I in hindsight looking back on it musically, which was I was a fan of Deftones. And when they started going this lighter, weirder, moodier direction, I immediately went the other way. And that's when I really sold my soul to everything aggressive.
Which makes sense.
And it was just
why
like,
you wouldn't like
I was the
like
biggest
this.
Pantera fan at that time. And there was no room for Deftones in my life.
Oh, I'm sure.
It was just, I'm going far heavy and extreme beat your chest type shit. And then since I was a naive music fan and this came out in 2000 or whenever it came out, it did come out in 2000. I immediately thought that everyone in the world would agree with me and be like, not heavy Deftones, we're fucking out. I'm like, this is going to be a bad record for them. It was the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Everyone got it but me. And their fan base was sold on them and they became a household name. Their throne was waiting for them to an extent. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they won a Grammy for this record.
They did. Their only Grammy was from the song Elite, which is weird.
That song?
Yeah. Elite won Best Metal Performance that year.
I like that song.
I like
That's
it too.
Weird.
It is weird because it wasn't like a big single, really.
I don't think it was a single.
Change was the best song on the record.
You think so? Yeah, I would agree.
I actually,
it was the best
Passenger,
song.
you know what? Maybe I like this record more than I let on. I mean, because I'm thinking of, okay, Digital Bat's cool.
Oh,
Passenger's cool. I give Passenger the pass because Maynard's on it, just fucking killing it. It's
he does kill
It's
it.
one of his finest hours.
Yeah, for sure. Not
know-
even with his own band.
You know what's crazy? So I've only seen Deftones like a handful of times. But one of the last times I saw them, they fucking played that song.
Same.
And I was shocked. And what was great was the fact they're notorious for having some, well, at least Chino's known for having rough nights, but this night, for whatever reason,
Rough careers.
He was like on point with his vocals and like he
nice.
crushed it on Passenger.
Even Maynard's parts?
I couldn't believe it. I saw
him play that song live, but I never heard the song before in my entire life.
Oh,
and
really?
I was just like, oh, this is cool. And then like,
it's a cool, I remember Don that used to do sound for Soil. That was his like sound check song.
okay.
I was like, this is the best. Like,
was Passenger?
Yeah,
Dude, every sound guy's got a
fucking
different
night.
Deftones song they use.
He's the only one I ever met that did Deftones.
Because the
Other
records
people do
sound great.
weird,
Are you kidding me? Every sound engineer
Really?
I've like,
probably
dude,
the younger ones. Like maybe
Yeah.
I run across a lot of older dudes.
like Cherry Waves, that song from Saturday Night
yeah.
Wrist, that was
Yeah.
like on the last tour we did with Alter Beast, their sound dude Steve, he
That was
would
his go-to.
always do that. Yeah, and I love that song.
funny.
So I was like, oh, cool. But anyway, so how I got into Deftones was me and my ex at the time. My ex is like a diehard Incubus fan.
Yeah.
I think Incubus is lame, but that's I know you like
Fair
them.
enough.
Yeah, you know, I think they're fucking. It's like,
I get it.
yeah, and not my thing. It's like if you took like some cool shit and added like this weird Sublime element to it. Not Sublime, but like 311-y, like
The beach stoner.
yeah,
dude.
and I'm
Beach
just
stoner.
like, no.
Girl.
But they were doing a co-headliner with Deftones, and she was like, let's go. And I was like, oh, like, I've always liked Deftones from afar. Like, fuck it, let's go. I'm down. It was like a Tinley Park show. It was a summer show.
Take a gamble.
And I was
seeing
just like, yeah, I was
Deftones
like, you
live.
know what? I haven't done anything like this in a while. I'm like, fuck it. Like, let's go. Like, I'm sure I'll dig them. And like, Gore just came out. So
okay,
I went
cool.
out and I picked up Gore at Target for like $7 because this was the era of like Final Destination
Right.
CDs. We're just trying to give them away at this
Like,
point.
It's either that or
But it
the
was sick
trashy,
because I still
yeah.
drove a car that only played CDs, and I was like, "Fuck it, I'll get it. Why not?" And I got it, and I liked it a lot. So I was like, "Cool, you know, I'll check it out." I saw their set, loved it. I went back and checked out like, because a lot of my friends were really into shit like Diamond Eyes and Koi no Yokon. That stuff.
Diamond
where-
Eyes was like the next White Pony for them, where like
Yeah,
all of a
it was
sudden
this
people were like,
resurgence. Yeah.
this fucking band rules. I'm like, where are
Exactly.
these people coming from?
Same.
All right, like
Because I remember that, you know, because and Stephen Carpenter was breaking out the 8-string.
His
and
name's
shit like
Stephen
that.
Carpenter, by the
Stephen,
way.
my bad.
Stefania.
I talked to 10 people a week about this when they're talking to me about
sorry,
Deftones. And
Just call him Steve.
no. But when it comes down to it, everyone wants to talk to me about Deftones, and then I immediately interrupt him. His name's Stephen
Yeah.
Carpenter.
Steph.
Well, Stephen Carpenter. Anyway,
Now rocking a 9
not
string.
to stay away from this, but initially when I first heard White Pony, I didn't really like it that much because I had listened to it and I was like, oh, new metal bullshit at that time. I mean, this is like 6-7 years ago. And I was just like, nah, I can't even get through it. Like, I liked Change. I love Digital Bath. Like, when they start to do like the moody shit, that's when I really started to like it. And I was just like, man, I guess I just don't fucking understand it. But then like, I remember weird history timeline here. Chino did a song with Whitechapel on their third record, and he's screaming the whole time. And I'm like, whoa, this is the dude from the Deftones? Like, I didn't know he was all about this. Because at the time, like, all I had heard from Deftones were like the singles that were on Q101 or the more radio friendly The Zone stuff, when that was still a channel. And that was pretty much it. And to me, Deftones always had this like mature sound. So I was like, when I was that age, I was like Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park was big for me because it was like, it was easy shit to listen to. And it was like a little harder and a little more like, I don't want to say less experimental, but it's experimental in a different way to where it's like, if I heard a song like Teenager when I was like 12, I probably would have been like, I don't know what the fuck this is. And now it's like, I think that's my favorite song on this record.
Really? That's funny. Probably my least favorite song.
Yeah, I'm sure. But it's like, I love it because it's just this weird, like lo-fi, like garage beat, and Chino's just singing like a I don't know.
Dog whining.
Yeah. And I'm just like, man, I love this song. But like, I have to say this whole record is just like, I love it now. It's probably my favorite Deftones album just because it's so like each song is
top
like
to bottom, every song.
It's nuts.
A fucking banger.
Yeah.
You know?
And it's all so different. Like there's a lot of different shit. Like Street Carp is like heavy as fuck. You know what I mean? Even the chorus of that song, Korea, is heavy.
Korea.
I mean, just listening to all this shit, dude. RX
Korea
Queen
is my favorite song because I love that chorus.
Yeah.
Korea.
It's sweet.
RX Queen is no, that's not a song I like.
Did you know? Well, I'm sure you do know, but there's an
probably Elite's my favorite.
Really? Elite is good. Elite is a good song.
Elite.
I was playing that riff at practice the other day.
There's that's a Stephen Carpenter fucking special. That's like his vibe.
I love Digital Bath though. That's probably man.
That song used to be one of my least favorites, but then over the years, I'm like, that song fucking rules.
The drums on that song alone, like this Abe Cunningham, by the way, like that dude is super underrated. I never hear him talked about in drum circles, and he is a phenomenal drummer.
Good for sure. Yeah, like one of the things about this band I think appeals to a lot of people is the fact that like none of them are the most amazing musicians, but together they're an amazing band.
Great point.
Like even Abe Cunningham, I'm sure there's plenty of drummers that can run circles around that guy, but what he adds to it is great. But he never really goes too far out from what he does. You know, Stephen Carpenter, not the greatest guitar player in the world. Like that. Why is he playing 8-9 strings? He's like always down here, you know.
Now he's on 9 strings. Isn't that nuts? I'm like pumped to hear that new record. I like that new song.
I'm trying to think that
Ohms.
Yeah, oh yeah, hell yeah. They had a video for it too and everything.
I'm gonna say
Chino is a terrible singer. More often
you
than
think
not.
So? Oh,
he's
live,
so bad.
You know, like live. No, even on record, it's like
really.
Oof,
I like him as a singer.
It's part of the appeal, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, and then the only downfall of Deftones is the amount of people that came out afterward. They were like, "Oh, he sings bad. I can sing bad," and it was like, "Oh no!" And there was just an era of local bands.
Oh, that were ripping off Deftones.
Yep. Yeah, just
that's
the
a new thing
cat,
now too.
Like, it's like, dude, stop! Like, let that guy do it, and like, let's not.
He also can't execute vocals live. Period. There was
he's usually winded like a motherfucker.
Yeah,
it depends.
I saw them jamming.
Coke or not.
I saw them jamming. There's footage of them jamming on Elite in the practice space from this era on YouTube.
Really?
Yeah, I think it came with the disc, right?
Okay, and they are in a practice space, and then Chino's like, "Let's fucking run it," and they're playing Elite, which maybe wasn't even titled at the time. And then he's out of breath from the first lyric.
Wow!
Like, and he's standing doing nothing but singing into a microphone, like on a stand.
Yeah, bad technique.
Not very conditioned.
So yeah, bad technique. That's the key.
Bad technique.
Yeah, I talked to the people about keeping stamina on stage, and it is very difficult from a vocal standpoint.
I'm sure it is.
You're growling,
I can't imagine.
The key is just breathing.
Yeah,
you know, you got to
chewing gum.
I wouldn't do that.
When I saw him live, he kind of sucked. Like he was not singing choruses, letting the crowd sing like change chorus, and I'm like, dude, really, man?
That's lazy.
Come on.
But
I didn't like at the time. I was like, I wasn't like super invested in them, so I was like, oh, it was still cool that I got to like see it. You know what I mean? And
I saw them on this tour, and on
the White Pony tour.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where I said, I don't really like this record, but I'm 15. I'm just trying to get out of the house.
Sure.
Cool. So I'll go with my friends or whatever. And
do you remember who they played with?
Yeah, it was actually Incubus played it, and it was at I want to say Allstate Arena.
Wow.
Yeah, because there's a caveat to it, which was, and believe me, they both played long sets because they were two of the headliners, but it was a fucking like Q101 show.
Okay.
Where it was them and Cypress Hill played it, and there was just a lot of rad bands. But I saw them and I was not only disappointed, but I'm like, great, I'm glad I'm officially done with this band at this point because they were so bad live. They were so bad. And then I had the wherewithal to be a year later. I saw them again. Maybe it was a year and a half. And I said to myself, they're probably not as bad as I remember them. And then I saw them, they were actually worse.
Yeah.
So I threw my hands up. I can't do them live. I don't get it, you know?
And that had to be a big thing back then too. You know what I mean? Like even more so than now. It's just like the live show. And it's like you're finally going out to see a band that's larger than life. And when they suck shit, it's probably a big disappointment. Yeah. I mean, there's so many fucking metal bands I listen to now. It's just like I could give a fuck if a band is like sick or not live. Like, I mean, not that I don't give a shit, but I mean, it's like there's so many sick bands we play with. Like, I don't know, like a band like Disentomb. It's just like, oh, they crush it every time.
That band is insanely good live.
Yeah.
That band might be the best death metal band I've seen live ever.
Disentomb?
Yeah.
Whoa. Where did you see them?
At Reggie's.
The show we played with them?
Yeah.
Wow. Fuck yeah.
They were so good that night.
They were so, dude, they're good every night I've seen them.
So,
but like,
we're kind of not on the same, we're not too far off because out of all those bands that you said just whoop ass, like you brought them up.
Yeah.
So you think they whoop ass live, right?
Hell yeah. They do whoop ass live.
I don't know what it is, man. I thought they just were so good.
They're awesome, dude. Singer's great. Like they sound good live. Oh man, the last time I saw them, they headlined Cobra. It was the last time they were here.
Yeah, I think I was there.
Like, fuck yeah.
And it was they remind me of a death metal band with essentially Dimebag on guitar to some degree.
Yeah, definitely weird noise. It's like it's like Dimebag mixed with like Luke LeMay mixed with like Discord shit, which is just like give it all to me, man. I love that band. But anyway, Deftones, White Pony.
First album, Drop C, but go on.
So is this in Drop C?
So every album they drop tuning.
Really?
So the very first album was standard and D, like drop D.
Okay.
Then it went to, C sharp and then C and so on and so on.
Okay.
Now they're so fucking heavy now.
He's got a 9-string now.
Like a groove Meshuggah type deal.
Who do you think made his 9-string? Like what 9-string you think he's using?
ESP.
Really?
Yeah, he's been an ESP guy.
Did they make him a 9-string? I didn't know they were producing 9 strings. Yeah, remember when like that?
They'll make him anything.
Oh
like,
yeah.
There's a really cool video you can find on YouTube of him going through like his guitar collection and stuff like that.
Oh, cool.
It's insane. It's insane. Like, and they'll literally make anything he wants. And like, it's so funny. Like I remember when I saw him one time in Chicago, which I love that he seems to do, is like he has a Michael Jordan guitar. It's got the 23 on it and the Bulls colors.
Oh, nice.
I believe he has like a LeBron James one too. Like he has like different, like, cause he's a big sports guy. So he's got ones like that.
All right.
I'm
sold.
Yeah.
That's really fucking cool, man.
That is
sweet. So he has like
really
all
awesome
that stuff.
Dude, when I saw him,
he's got is it Gucci or whatever? Like I forgot what brand
like the
it is.
Gucci
Like
logo?
The logo,
it's what's the one with all the weird little shapes on it? Like
Louis Vuitton.
Yeah, he's got one of those. It's so fucking funny. But yeah, I mean, he's been with them forever. As his entire
I
career.
remember that he was with them for a long time.
Yeah,
I mean, back in the day, I remember seeing his signature.
He's a special guitarist for sure, and it's Bill hit the nail on the head, which is these dudes wouldn't work well with anyone but themselves. Like, and it's him and Abe's chemistry is insane.
Yeah,
I would say that Abe is probably the most talented of the guys.
Yeah, he's awesome, man.
Yeah,
great drummer.
Very signature sound.
Yeah, the piccolo type snare that's really round tight.
Oh,
I don't know if
dude.
It's probably piccolo, but I don't know much about drumming. But just a distinct sound. One of the ways their distinct sound comes across is the fact that they've been on, especially this era. I'm trying to think of, I haven't followed Deftones in the early shit. I have no clue who's doing their shit now, but Terry Date was their guy.
He's doing their new record. Their new record is actually their first one back with him since White Pony.
Sure. So they did the first 3 with Terry Date.
Yep.
Maybe Adrenaline wasn't Terry Date, but they Terry Date was Pantera's guy.
Yeah.
And I believe that there was a little bit of a pseudo rivalry that existed between Pantera and Deftones.
Yeah.
Pantera always kind of little brothered them a little bit. They actually toured with Pantera on, I want to say, Far Beyond Driven.
Interesting.
It was a Pantera White Zombie. Deftones were the opener.
What was their album at the time? Adrenaline?
It would be Adrenaline.
Yeah. It would have to be.
Because, and obviously Terry Date was their boy.
Sure.
And I have to actually give Terry Date a little bit of a knock right now. There was Pantera, and I want to say White Pony was the straw that broke the camel's back. Terry Date was always Pantera's dude.
Yeah.
When White Pony came out in 2000, Pantera was going to be going in to record what would have been Reinventing the Steel.
Yeah.
And I think they were doing it almost simultaneously. And because of that, they didn't go with Terry Date, Pantera. And Pantera actually recorded it themselves. Now, that record, Reinventing the Steel, actually sounds fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And it sounds pretty hard as fuck. The songs are cool.
Fun fact, that's the one Pantera record I ever owned.
Really? You own a copy?
I did. I don't know where it went.
Did you like it?
Yeah, enough to.
There's some good. That's an awesome record.
No, yeah. There's really cool shit on it. And they, this week, just announced that they are doing a 20th anniversary of Reinventing the Steel.
They announced that?
Shit.
They announced it.
Did that album do well?
I think at that point, Pantera was such a fucking commodity and everyone worshipped them that
they bought it.
And then it proceeded with them doing several arena tours after that, where they were the undisputed headliner.
Okay.
Wow.
So it was very successful. Terry Date wasn't involved with it.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
Terry Date, for the 20th anniversary, has remixed and remastered the record.
Whoa.
And there's a section of Reinventing. There's several discs to it, or however they might be releasing on LPs. I don't fucking know. But all I know is there's the regular mix and there's the Terry Date one. And
didn't they do that with Great Southern Trendkill too? Like he remixed and remastered it?
He might have, but he was involved on Trendkill. He wasn't involved. He wasn't involved in this one.
Yeah.
So what I'm driving at is this, which I listened to and I couldn't wait. I was like, great, Terry Date. I'm going to see what Reinventing the Steel would have sounded like when he did it. And it sucks compared to what Reinventing the Steel originally sounded like.
Really?
He took out a lot of shit, which made it special for me, which is the low end on Reinventing the Steel is like no other Pantera record.
Yeah.
It's low end as fuck.
It's heavy.
It's heavy as shit. And he, like a lot of Pantera mixes, the whole thing was rush the high end with the guitars, so they're piercing.
Yeah.
And then the riff is pretty sick still, but it's just like that really high trebly guitar with like kind of the low end bass and drums doing their thing. But this was a cohesive unit with Reinventing.
Interesting.
And when I heard the mixes, I was very disappointed.
Wow.
So I'm cool. I'm glad he did it.
Sure.
But I heard the one song, and everyone knows this song if you're a Reinventing the Steel fan, was Revolution Is My Name.
Oh, yeah.
And it doesn't sound anywhere near as the original does. And guess what? I fucking played right before COVID. I did a DJ set somewhere, and I fucking, I want to say it was I was DJing a Livewire show or some bullshit. I played Revolution Is My Name over the fucking big speakers, and it sounded so crushing. And it wasn't a remastered version.
The OG, baby.
And I was like, Jesus Christ.
Nice.
And then fucking dudes were walking in like,
yeah.
It still sounds great.
Yeah,
so
man.
Don't mess with greatness, but that's the rip on Terry Date. But he's a legendary producer, and we're not even talking about, we'll never talk about him on this show, but other than Pantera, one of his staple bands around the time he was Soundgarden's engineer.
Oh,
so he did a lot of classic Soundgarden shit.
I didn't know that.
You add in those three bands, which is Soundgarden, Pantera, and Deftones. Yeah. What else do you need? That's your career, dude.
I mean, especially, I mean,
as a heavy producer, it's fucking amazing.
Yeah, think of an album like Reinventing the Steel, and then think of an album like White Pony, and think of just think of the production on some of these, like the production on Teenager. It's like that dude is clearly insanely talented to be able to do some shit like that,
yeah,
and make it sound so fucking good, and then do like a Revolution Is My Name.
But he didn't do that. He didn't do.
I'm thinking of Drag the Waters is stuck in my head right now.
Drag the Waters is heavy as fuck.
Yeah, that song is so fucking nasty. It's like, come on, the Acacia Strain owns fucking Pantera a check or two. You know? But on White Pony, I feel like, because when I first heard White Pony, I was like, all the experimental tracks were my favorites. So I liked Digital Bath, I liked RX Queen, I liked Teenager, and those still probably are my favorites, but I feel like this time around I really appreciated the heavy shit more. But I know this is like obviously it's the seminal Deftones record, but it's also what I from my research, what I had gathered is this was the record that kind of put Stefan and Chino on ends with each other.
Yeah.
I read a bunch of shit that they were constantly fighting with each other because Steven was not down with the tracks like Teenager or RX Queen or shit like that.
He's
He was
the heavy
like,
guy,
yeah,
you
he
know?
was like, I just want to make the heaviest record. And Chino threw like a diss at him in an interview or something where like, he was like, and he mentions Meshuggah. He was like, well, Stefan, you could just fucking listen to Meshuggah all you want, but we're going to do this. And it's just like,
It's still going on to this day.
Yeah.
oh yeah.
And apparently Stephen Carpenter's more involved in this one that's about to come out or
That's
whatever.
what I've been reading.
That's
Is
the
that
rumors,
like
The rumor is it's heavier or
he's
whatever.
more into it, and
It's
like,
weird because like normally that's the kind of thing that breaks up a band, but
Yeah,
they're like, fuck it, that's just
I
how
can't
we
believe
do
he's.
it.
Yeah, that's what's so interesting is like because
Even
when-
that like stuff that's not heavy is great.
Yeah.
And he does a great job with
Exactly.
it, which is so funny.
And I know Chino took a more predominant role with the songwriting on this record too. Because he started playing guitar on this album.
Yeah,
like
this
he
is where he
literally
first
started
started
learning
doing
how to play guitar while they were doing this record, and he contributed to
Yeah.
it. So, and I think even that in itself, he stated that like that was also creating tension between him and Stefan because Stefan
stepping
wanted to
on
be.
his job,
he was
yeah.
just like, yep, it just has to be me, and like, it's very interesting to me that like. Oh fuck! They started arguing with like that, but then every single record preceding White Pony is just like the same type of shit. I'm like, how does he? Yeah, like you said, it's like normally that would break up a band. It's like,
Right.
how is he? And then when
I think Stephen Carpenter is just so high all the time that he's like, whatever.
I don't know what it is. And I mean, remember when like,
He's just cool.
do you
He's
remember
just
the
like,
press
whatever.
when Gore came out, and then there was all that shit about how like
Yeah,
Stefan
was
was
very
barely
vocal about it.
Yeah,
Barely-
he wasn't into it.
he wasn't into
and
it,
He wasn't
yeah.
involved with it at all. And then it turned into this whole thing, and Chino had to come out and be like, Stefan likes the record. He just wasn't involved with it as much. He was going through some shit when we were writing it. Like, it's such a fucking
It's a
funny
weird-
dynamic to me
yeah.
that it's just
and the rest
like,
of the guys are just like, yeah, we're here.
yeah. It's just so funny to me that it's like, it's such a classic, like two guys wanting to do something different, but they make this amazing band that's like so highly regarded and respected. And like,
I think
they still fight like
in
their
some way in the back of
children.
their head, they know that. Like,
I'm sure
like
they
this
do.
formula works, so why fuck with it?
Yeah.
Everyone knows that when they talk about Abe Cunningham, that fucking I'll just say this, that fill in Change.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
I think so.
There's a drum fill at the end where it's that the hook is and then the drums go ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba,
Yeah.
ba-da-ba, ba-da-ba.
Yeah.
Like listen to that fill, but that's his fill.
Yeah, it is.
Oh,
His
yeah.
film.
That's his-
It's definitely his film. I know what you're talking about. Tickets, tickets. Yeah, he's such a fucking smooth player, though, dude. On the beginning of Digital Bath, it's like the cleanest shit. And yeah, and all those weird ghost notes on the snare. I'm like, man, I wonder
Ghost
how
notes, yeah.
I was like, I wonder how many times he had to fucking re-record that, because I guarantee you, like, that's
I'm
2
sure.
hours of warming up, because
Oh, I
that's a
know.
hard groove to nail like that. But Terry, I mean, even the drums on that sounds like an album you would hear today.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
even like and now you got all these metalcore bands that are like, now they're these Deftones clones, like that band Loathe. Have
Yeah,
you
it's
heard
called-
about
Yeah,
this
yeah,
band?
we've talked about him on the show.
Yeah.
they were
like-
on Nail the Mix last month.
Did you listen to them?
No,
I want you to listen
No,
to
I
that
listened
album.
to Loathe. I thought it was cool and it was very Deftonesy.
Yeah,
Everyone-
I've heard
Deftones-y.
that. And
All
I
the
haven't really had
kids,
chance.
all the kids. It's funny because if
Which
you,
era of Deftones is it?
Like White Pony shit.
Oh, okay.
Deftones is one of those bands that came from that era that aged super well, and they are the coolest band to like and draw influence from. Korn, my shirt. In my world, they're still regarded heavily, like highly. Some people, when you talk about Korn, it's an eye roll.
Yeah.
Slipknot
Yeah.
was always a band that you had to be kind of all in with them. You couldn't just casually like them. It was
Sure.
because it was too polarizing of a thing. I will say this, which is I feel that what I'm saying is White Pony, which came out in 2000, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
I would
2000.
argue is the most important record in heavy music for between 2000 and 2010.
Yeah.
I don't
Oh,
think
yeah.
I don't think there's a more important one,
I would
because
agree.
that influenced like so many breakoffs of it allowed bands like Glassjaw or At the Drive-In to get their shots, not through Deftones, but just people were listening to Deftones, and it was
Yeah.
a lot more digestible to hear those bands. And
Oh,
then
yeah.
they blew
Mhm.
the fuck up. The whole emo, screamo scene all worship Deftones and White Pony.
100%. Yeah.
And then these metal bands that came out were all huge Deftones fans.
Oh, yeah.
So it's just everyone liked it. That's why it is the most important record of, again, that span, I think. And I was like, someone could say, Iowa by Slipknot or Toxicity or whatever, but not really. Like, they were great albums, and I like both those records better than White Pony for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Just less influential. It's just that's the way it is.
Definitely less influential. And I mean, this is the 20-year anniversary of that record now. It was just in June.
20th anniversary.
So, which is nuts. And like,
years.
Yeah,
That's
pretty
crazy.
wild. And it's just cool. There's a lot of cool stories behind it. Like, I'm sure you know, but Scott Weiland does guest vocals on RX Queen, and it's uncredited.
It's uncredited, yeah.
I read this whole thing about it, about how apparently like Scott Weiland, like Stone Temple Pilots manager, was worried because Scott either just got out of jail or rehab. I can't remember which one. But essentially, like, they were so afraid of him like going right back to drugs that like they essentially reached out to Deftones and they were like, hey, how would you feel about us putting Scott in the studio with Chino to work on some vocal stuff? And Scott, like, Chino was just like, sure, like, I don't give a let's do it.
Scott Weiland, hell yeah.
It was almost like the way I was reading it was like, it just seemed like a way to keep him busy.
Yeah.
So he helped Chino write the hook in RX Queen, which is interesting. And he does the harmony on it. If you listen, that's Scott doing the harmony, and it's uncredited. I don't know why, but that's so crazy to me because like, I think Stone Temple Pilots is sick as fuck. I think they're an awesome band.
One of the sickest ever.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I mean,
phenomenal. Nice. Over time, like, they've been a band for me where it's like every time I hear them, I'm like, God damn. Like,
the band rules.
Yeah, like, they're one of my go-to karaoke bands, dude.
Fuck yeah.
They're just sick. They're just a fun band. Nice. And like, it's cool to like hear a guy like Scott Weiland, like, not only was he on a Deftones song, but he like helped write probably one of the weirdest songs on the album. And it's just such a head fuck to me, because this period, and like you said, like, this is a seminal album for a lot of people. But not only did that come out this year, also Kid A by Radiohead came out that year, which was like, that was like, in my opinion, I mean, a lot of people will say OK Computer is like the big Radiohead record, but I feel like that was the record that really turned the head for that band, just because they started, like, they just upped the experimental game like through the fucking roof. Like, there were songs with no guitars on it, like all electronic shit, super weird. So it's cool to see, like, oh wow, like, I wonder, like, I would love to have a conversation with Scott Weiland just to be like, what the fuck did you even think of this song? It sounds like nothing like Stone Temple Pilots would do.
Fucking high.
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds like, and like Chino's like, yeah, it's a really futuristic-y sounding song. I'm like, yeah, it is, but how the fuck, like, yeah, it's just so.
Scott Weiland was also on the Limp Bizkit record, Significant Other, on a track. He is credited though.
Yeah, I remember that.
And
so
again,
funny.
they were just trying to keep him busy.
Yeah.
I will say this as a huge STP fan. This was right when Weiland got out of jail and was clean. This was my favorite era for him, because when he started jamming with STP again, when you would see him, I saw him live in person several times around that time.
Okay.
He felt like he was Superman.
Sure.
Because he had conquered something.
Oh, yeah.
That eventually caught up with him 20 years later, or whatever it was.
Unfortunately.
But he was the shit. And he was just one of my favorite vocalists of all time, for sure. And then one other quick side note about uncrediting. I said this to someone recently, and they're like, that didn't fucking happen. I go, yes, it did happen. Which is, if anyone knows Danzig, one of his bigger songs is the first song on his first record, Twist of Cain.
Oh, yeah.
James Hetfield is doing the backing vocals on that.
Oh, yes. I've heard that before.
Uncredited.
Yeah.
They're uncredited because you can't just throw around James Hetfield's name in liner notes without the label that owns Hetfield, Elektra or whatever, getting a huge fucking paycheck, because he's a top 2 rock star in the world.
Yeah.
So that's why he's uncredited, but he's the backing vocals on Twist of Cain. You can hear, when you know that he's there, you'll never be able to unhear it.
Yeah, that was the same thing with Scott Weiland, and then I listened to it, and I was like, oh, whoa. And it's a weird harmony in the chorus, too. Dude, I just love this record, man. I think White Pony is the shit. I think if anybody hasn't heard this album, like, you gotta fucking do it, at least at some point in your life. Just listen to it front to back. And like, yeah, that's also crazy. The Passenger, because their whole thing was, what I read was that Deftones didn't want any guests on this record. They were like, we just want it to be us. And then I guess they did, I forget what tour it was, but they did a tour with Tool. or project with Maynard, and Maynard liked the band so much that they finally he was just like, oh, come hang out with me in California somewhere or whatever. Yeah, and they were hanging out, and then finally like they got into some studio work, and then the way they wrote that song Passenger, from what Chino described it, was like he had a notebook with the lyrics in it, and they were listening to the demo of the song. Chino would write a line, he'd hand over the notebook to Maynard, and Maynard would write a line, and then they were just bouncing back and forth like that. And it's so cool to like hear a story like that.
To hear a story like that, assuming it unfolded just like that was said, is really cool. I love cool songwriting stories.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just cool to hear like Maynard's voice over a band like that too. It just sounds really cool.
I do always like Maynard on stuff that's not Tool.
Yeah. Because his vocals really shine on like Perfect Circle, dude. Like that first Perfect Circle record, vocally, I think is better than anything he did with Tool. And I love Tool, but
there's that Rage Against the Machine song where he's on it. Know Your Enemy. Yeah. Where he just says, I got no patience now.
Dude, that's the shit.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I love it.
It's very, very epic. Yeah, so when he rolls up, you know he's there.
Yeah.
And you don't forget it. So I will say this, which is I think I always hear him mention Back to School on that record, which had a great music video too, where they're running around a fucking school.
I haven't seen it. Really? That's interesting.
And,
yeah.
And then also people just always talking about fucking Passenger.
Oh yeah.
You know, those are the jams. And obviously the Maynard fans of the world hold him in such high regard that it makes sense that would be in the forefront of everyone's Deftones favorites.
Of course.
Everyone loves that song.
Which is so interesting. So apparently that song, Back to School, was not on the initial pressing of the record. It was a song where like, so I read this whole thing about this song. Chino, essentially, so their label, they were on that label that was founded by Madonna.
Yeah, Maverick.
Yeah, Maverick Recordings, which was, I think, a subsidiary of Warner Brothers or something like that. And they wanted to, this was the era of like, let's put out a deluxe edition like less than a year or like a year after like the album comes out to boost the sales.
When they did that.
I loved it. I would just wait and get the, like, I have all the Kill Switch deluxe albums.
They used to do it where like the deluxe album was the first album you got and it was awesome. And then, obviously the labels caught on. They're like, well, wait a minute. We could just release the regular one.
And then we'll do deluxe after.
And we get 2 sales.
Yeah. Dude, Roadrunner Records was the king of that shit when I was in like middle school.
It did get to the point where I was like, I'm not buying the record day one. I'm going to wait.
Yeah. And
Deftones was probably the last one where I did that because I'm like, well, they're fucking all of us. I was like, I'm waiting.
So they put like, essentially they wanted another track and like, Chino was so not about it. And then Chino was just like, they listened to the song Pink Maggot and they suggested to him, they were like, yo, the chorus of this song, because that's like that slow build nu metal jammy, like we're going to end it on a really weird note. And like the first half of that song is super weird. And then they get into the chorus and it's like, oh, this is an awesome chorus. And like, then you're like, and then it clicked for me where I'm like, oh, I guess I could see what they mean by that. You could make like, because essentially what they said was like, they were like, Chino, you should do something. Like, you guys should just do something with this. And to be like an FU, Chino was like, I'm just going to write a dumbass song that involves this chorus more, and I'll show you how easy it is. And he did. And they loved it. And he got so pissed about it because he was like, this is supposed to be like a joke. Like, yeah. And
that's
like,
usually how that works.
And it's funny because it is like, I would arguably say that's probably the most nu metal sounding song on the album.
Without question.
Yeah, because
and
it's got
also
the rapping in it.
That's why it was one of the best nu metal songs to come out around that time in an era that was the golden age of nu metal, and they weren't even trying to do that song.
I know.
And then also it'll go down, and someone try to combat me on this, it'll go down as the best, as far as heavy music goes, the best song ever to not make a record. That came out as a bonus song.
Right.
Yeah.
One of those.
Which is so, and not only a last song, a first song on the album that completely changes the flow of it. Like,
it's complete. No, I don't like it as the first song.
Me neither do I.
I like it as nothing, actually. I like it on the back end as like a bonus track.
Yeah,
it's its own thing. It makes no sense as an opener.
It doesn't.
The other opener that's actually there with fucking the weird
Stupid.
Yeah, stupid.
Yeah, that song's awesome. A weird song again. A weird song.
That's the opener of that record.
And that's what was weird.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like the first time I listened to this album was last year. I didn't know that. The first time I listened to this,
so bizarre.
And I put on the first song, back to school. And immediately my first thought was like, all right, they're opening it up with a classic nu metal banger. I get it, probably to draw people in, whatever. Then the second song comes on and I'm like, oh, this is awesome.
A little bit of a curve.
And now realizing that was the case, I went back and I tried to listen to it again just from like that song onward. And I'm like, wow, this like
Makes
completely changes the feel. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
That's fun.
And it's just crazy to hear stories like that because music was just so different. I mean, the way people consumed music back then was so different. And like, I just think, man, it's just funny to me, man, because I kind of like the Deftones albums. I feel like I ignore the most are like the self-titled, which is the record after that.
Yep.
That album went under the radar for a lot of people, but that album's fucking phenomenal.
There's good songs on it for sure.
It's so
Yeah.
good.
What's the Minerva? That song's awesome.
Minerva, God bless you.
Got the one,
I haven't heard that song in
Rats on it, which is
Rats.
like,
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah,
that song's
yeah.
the shit.
And,
like, that bridge is awesome.
And Saturday Night Wrist, like I never really listened to
Hexagram.
that one as much. Yeah, Hexagram's sick.
There's some great. Yeah, that's a great album too.
Yeah, or Saturday Night Wrist.
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
that album a lot.
The shit.
But I just feel like I'm like super unfamiliar with those records because I remember those coming out. Like I remember
7-string era records.
I know. I remember seeing that Deftones album cover, like the skull with the roses on it, and I remember like this is tacky bullshit. I don't want it. Like
What the fuck is this Hardy?
I remember I saw it at-
Hardy bullshit.
yeah, I saw exactly. I saw it at Target, and I was just like, nah, pass.
I bought
and
that
like
I bought right away.
that's funny. Yeah,
that.
I got to go back and like get into it, but
the good thing is
it's-
this, which is with
great.
Deftones, no matter what, you're going to get a record that sounds good.
yeah.
I
absolutely.
never thought that they underachieved sonically.
Yeah.
And that's cool. That's a testament to probably them being great in the studio, or at least learning how to execute their own shit. And Terry Date being a great engineer, and then the subsequent people they've worked with modeling, knowing the formula and not trying to fucking do any bullshit.
Absolutely.
They've always sounded great. So good for them. And like, I will say that I'm stoked that I got to re-listen to this record because it's the 20th anniversary year.
Yeah.
And it would have been a record that I would have copacetically avoided. And been like, I'm fucking done with it. Because I got
was
so
out 20 years ago and I'm
fuck
out
that
still.
shit. But yeah, it was an interesting listen. It brought back some memories. It brought back memory. I found myself liking certain riffs on the record, certain songs, kind of, But ultimately, I know, and I go to bed with this every night, that it's other people's record, not mine.
Yeah, sure.
That's fair.
Dude,
Not
I gotta
my
say,
deal,
there
dude.
was some time, because part of the reason I picked it was because there was at some point you posted it on the Something Is Waiting Instagram, like a clip of Chino, and you called him like a big oaf or something. And I thought it was like, or you like compared him to James Gandolfini. It was something like that.
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
like the funniest shit. And I was
Because
like, this is funny.
around this time, what happened was Chino was... Chino, when he first came out with Adrenaline, had the he was probably my length hair, had dreads,
Yeah.
and he was just a skater kid,
Yeah.
baggy everything,
Adidas, everything.
everything. They look kind of like corn or whatever.
Sure.
White pony, or not white pony, around the fur. If you look at that picture of him in that booklet or whatever the fuck, it's him. He has a short haircut with like blonde tips, and he looks like a total heartthrob. And I will say this, which is it starts from Gavin Rossdale on the way down. But if you were a front person in the late 90s, early 2000s, you were like a babe. Even if you weren't a babe, the babes like just loved you. It was all about the frontmen. And then Chino was getting to that point where he had like this slew of women that really thought he was a babe.
Yeah.
And then when White Pony came out, he still had that sort of look. And then right around the time that White Pony caught steam, he organically gained a bunch of weight.
Nice.
And
Stop doing coke.
yeah, he was just, chilling and fucking, smoking weed and eating Taco Bell or whatever.
Hell yeah.
So
The road hit him hard.
so it would be funny because I remember some dude being like, oh yeah, Deftones, they have like a bigger dude in the band. And I'm like, I'm assuming you're referring to Stephen Carpenter. And I'm doing
You
it.
did it. Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, but like the singer, and I'm just like, the singer's just as big as Stephen Carpenter now, and he was getting there,
Yeah.
So there's like the heartthrob Chino and there's fat Chino, but it's no different than Benicio del Toro, skinny and fat.
Yeah.
Like it's just like they're still cute dudes that
Of course.
girls dig her. I mean, it's all about the look and the talent. You know what I'm saying?
Attitude,
Yeah.
But now Stephen Carpenter lost a shitload of weight.
Yeah.
Yeah, looks good.
Oh, dude, I just saw Axton Bronson. He lost 100 pounds. I don't know if you guys like.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Really? He was a big dude.
He lost over 100 pounds. He says,
Holy
and he's
shit.
like, So,
He
and,
doesn't even look the same right now.
yeah, he looks different.
You
but
like him?
Funny.
I think that his I think he's entertaining when he does his cooking shows and all that bullshit. I think his rap sucks. I think his like total garbage. I with rap, it's hard for me to get behind a lot of the shit coming out where it's just people saying how cool they are.
That's like his MO too.
I know. Yeah. So fuck that. But he's entertaining like on his shows and shit.
He's awesome on his shows.
And he it's so funny how he cooks these elaborate meals after he smokes all these fucking huge dabs.
Yeah, doinks and shit. Yeah, man.
So I wouldn't be able to fucking do anything after smoking that weed, but it's so common for him. That's fucking great. So yeah, but I'm stoked he lost weight.
Yeah, good for him, man. And hopefully Chino will follow suit or something, you know? But yeah.
I thought he did. I thought he lost weight.
I'm very curious to listen to this next record now because of like, I like that single. Like the first time I heard it, I was like, whatever. And then I was like, Max was like, oh, you know, that's a 9-string. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. I wouldn't be able to tell. He's like, you wouldn't be able to tell because he doesn't like hit the 9-string really.
Yeah, it's like,
It's strange.
Like, I don't know. Stefan has a very, that's the thing. They all have this unique style to themselves that just works, you know?
Those are special bands like that. I love bands that you're like, these guys would be not in a band if they didn't find each other. It's so fucking cool.
Yeah.
And it's important to find out. I believe everyone in this room is very talented at what they do. But when you find people that you play whatever cards you're given. I mean, especially like if you live in certain areas, you're like, this dude lives close to me. He wants to do the similar type of music. And then your ideal thing should be to write around their strengths and hide their weaknesses. Yeah. I don't think anyone here is weak at what they do, but you definitely have strengths where you could exploit those fucking strengths. And people don't know how to fucking do that. People really don't. Mm-hmm. They're just, I wrote this riff, fucking play the best beat to it. And then you have some dude on the drums who can't do a proper fast beat going. Yeah. And it's like, that's the worst beat. This open ass hi-hat, everything bouncing. Like it just sounds like shit because the dude and the guitar player wrote the riff thinking only of himself as opposed to, oh, my drummer's really good at like, write the riff around that and you'll get the most mileage out of it.
Yeah, definitely.
But he's a dumb fucking songwriter.
Yeah. And another thing that I wanted to bring up about this album was I read an excerpt where Chino was talking about how when this came out, that's when they really, really wanted to move themselves away from the nu metal movement. And like he said, it's a personal victory now. he said it's a personal victory now when he reads like magazines about bands, like because they were friends with Korn, they were friends with a lot of nu metal bands, and like he was like, I love it when I don't see our name booked it with them, and he's like, but you know the way they did that was because they refused tours with Korn and shit like that back then, and like they said it was really hard for them because it was like. They were burning. They were burning some bridges, and like not only that, they were just like worried about like offending their friends, being like, "Hey, we still love you guys, but musically, like we can't do this shit anymore." And it's
there's no easy way to say that. And also, when Korn is one of the biggest bands in the world, and you're saying, "Hey, open up our huge stadium tour," and you say no, it's kind of like, "What the fuck you thinking?" Yeah. And also, honestly, they would have got to the same finish line and had the same amount of respect, even if they didn't distance themselves from fucking Korn. No one cares about that shit. Yeah, it was a personal victory for them, and they would have everyone still would have loved them the same.
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt because it's like it doesn't mean that they would change their progression musically. No. Like clearly on paper, there's a lot of songs on this record that are way beyond that scope. You know?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So you get what you fucking get.
Yeah, I mean they made a lot of smart moves. They did musically. They made a
lot of moves, which is sometimes just making a move proactively is a smart move because you're doing something. You're thinking about your execution. And you're not just saying regurgitate the same shit. Eventually, people are going to stick with it, and then by the time you realize it, it's too late. Right, and you're stuck. The press and the fans revolt against you, and you go from being a pseudo arena band to being a club band, maybe or go hang out at Mojo's and play that fucking show.
Or play Europe all the time,
or go away for a while. Yeah, that's probably the worst message. I guarantee a lot of labels and managers and all shit said your best bet is to go away for a while.
Yeah,
and just lay low for like 6 years and not do anything. And then come back with a fucking vengeance.
Yeah.
And that sucks. I guarantee a lot of people got that note.
Do you guys have any favorite songs on this record?
Do you
have a favorite?
My favorite is probably Elite and Back to School, being the folklore behind it and it being one of the best nu metal songs ever.
Yeah.
And it not even making the record.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing is just, and the video is so fucking funny.
I gotta watch it. I haven't seen it.
It's just fucking.
It's like a time capsule of a music video. You're like, oh yeah.
Yeah, they're running around a fucking high school.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, good shit.
Hell yeah, good shit. And yeah, it's pretty much it. I think my favorite is Teenager.
Yeah,
just because it's so weird and like it's the opposite of Deftones type shit. So I really
There's
like
always
it.
now like that song on a record.
Yeah,
which is cool, and it's always a great song.
Mm-hmm.
Although I'm trying to think.
Do you like that song?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah.
I think is it on Diamond Eyes where like they bastardized that song all over again? Like the drum beat's the same.
I don't know.
It's similar. There's a moment like that in like 2 of their albums. Where
I'm
you're
not
like,
too familiar with Diamond Eyes that
really?
much. Yeah, no,
cool.
I don't
It's
know
a
a
great
lot
album.
about it. I always liked Koi no Yokon more. And
Okay,
those records
cool.
were done by that new guy, Nick Reslutzowitz or
Yeah,
whatever.
he's awesome.
You know what I'm talking about?
He's so good.
Yeah, he
he's
does like high profile. He did like the last 2 Rush albums.
he
Yeah.
he did it. I think Alice in Chains comeback record.
Yeah.
oh really?
Yeah, he did. He did do that. I think
he
he did
is
both of
Black
their
is
records
so
back.
That
Yeah.
album, that first one rules.
And it sounds so good.
I love it.
That's another band I need to get into is Alice in
Listen to
Chains.
that.
Yeah,
Like,
you might have to. That band is one of my top 3 favorite bands of all
Well,
time.
I was watching. Did you see that Gibson has been releasing these Icon videos, or they do
yeah.
interviews?
So Cantrell had one.
Yeah,
It
was
was
really. I only watched a
Oh,
little bit
really?
of it, but it was awesome. Yeah, you should watch that.
Cantrell and Stephen Carpenter are like really tight friends in real
which
life.
I didn't know.
Yeah,
and that's and he's
they play
on it.
poker together like every week.
right.
He's
yeah.
on Gore.
Millionaire poker,
Yeah,
rock star
yeah,
shit.
right.
Or it's just like
the pot is like the bottom
Yeah.
is like $1,000.
it took him 20 grand, no big deal.
That's so funny, man. Yeah, that's so crazy. But it's so weird to me because like Alice in Chains, like sonically, is so
So different.
Yeah.
I don't know. They all just
and even
came
like
up.
because I know like Cantrell was homies with Dimebag, like
Oh, yeah.
real tight, and it's so weird to me because I'm like even sonically they were like so different.
I don't know, just a level of respect that
I have a
they're
friend
all
who
at that point.
who grew up in Poland, and he goes, "We hated grunge,
Yeah,
but we loved Alice in Chains.
because they were like the metal.
They
grunge
were the metal
band.
grunge band. I
Right.
might have mentioned this on the show before, but he goes, they were the only one. He goes,
Yeah.
besides that, all that other shit, Nirvana, we were like, fuck that. Like
Yeah.
they were into Creator and
Oh, yeah.
all that shit, and Slayer, obviously stuff. But again, that was the only one they took, Alice in Chains.
Yeah.
because there was a metal thing.
Well,
Good shit. Now we are on to another great
Yeah.
record,
Yeah.
or another interesting record, I should say. I don't know. No, I think it's pretty cool, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah, no, it's a non-point. Fun fact, it's one of the bands I've worked for before.
Yeah.
I text for them, which is funny. Originally I was gonna pick a Soil album, but I was like, we're gonna hold off on the Soil for a little bit and let that cool down. And but yeah, I also picked it because of
by the way, your comments on that shit, dude,
no,
Oh, dude,
is like my
It's like,
favorite thing in the world.
What are you
dude.
doing here, Go?
Yeah.
What are you trying to do here, man?
I found it funny being kind of a fly on the wall during that whole experience.
Me too.
I will say this, which is the best though is whatever. It was when Bill and I were talking about it, and he was giving me sort of the inside scoop on it. I just kept stopping him short in the sense I go, dude, you're fired. Like you're not getting us back. It's over.
We're
You're
never
done.
going on the road.
Yeah, it's over. Don't
That's
even
so funny, man.
because like the concept of getting at odds with the singer of any band.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a kiss of death, you know.
Yeah, dude.
You could fight with the drummers all day long.
Yeah, like, you're
They'll be
like,
oh,
Ryan,
don't
Ryan,
fucking
call
worry
me,
about
man.
that guy, man. Fuck
Yeah.
him. Like
Text
it's all
me,
good.
Ryan.
You're cool. You're cool.
Yeah, dude, that's so funny, man. Yeah,
Non-point
But yeah,
Yeah,
from
non-point.
Fort Lauderdale,
So,
Florida, originally. Yeah.
I picked it because Gabe was talking about this band recently.
does he like them?
He liked the song "To the Pain," I think was the one.
Okay.
Or "Bullet with the Name,"
It was Bullet with a Name.
Bullet with the Name,
With a name.
which I believe was like the single. off
That
the
was
album.
the
That's
single.
their top song on Spotify, man.
I believe
Is it
it was.
really?
Yeah.
I believe
That's
it was
funny.
also used for a WWE video game.
Oh,
One of
cool.
like the tracks in it.
Alright.
So that kind of blew it up a little bit.
this album's from like 2005,
Yes,
I think it was 4.
2004, 2005. So this is like the end of a lot of that shit.
Yeah.
Like this is
Yeah.
tail end new metal
Starting
stuff.
to get away from it.
Now the big non-point record. I forget the name of the first one.
Statement.
Statement. Yeah.
I love that record.
Yeah. It's really. I
wanted,
initially thought you would pick that one.
I wanted to, but then mainly because Gabe was talking about that song, and I think this one's a little more digestible for a lot of people that aren't into it. It's also
it was easy to listen to.
It's also the first album where they're in like drop A, and it's like heavy as
It is
fuck.
heavy. There's a lot of
Yeah.
heavy riffs on it.
Heavy as fuck, melodic,
Yeah.
radio friendly, I would say. What's my favorite song is the other single of that one, Alive and Kickin'.
That song fucking rules.
I know that's a really cool song. I've always liked, and I forget, is it Elias Soriano?
Yeah, Elias Soriano.
Cool frontman name.
Cool frontman.
He has always been a vocalist that I've liked because his lyrics are kind of all over the place, and you could tell that he's actually writing out shit for fucking days and refining it, as opposed to just being like, fuck yeah,
Right.
Normal NuMetal bullshit. And that song in particular, from what I got from it, was the how hard it is to be like a fucking lifer in a band.
Yeah.
And how when you get to the point where, especially when your wave of, again in 2004, NuMetal was over. If you were going to be a band that survived that, you need to find twists and turns in order to get it, make it work.
Yeah.
And you need to go out and play the weird venues in the weird areas.
Yeah.
And like it, or else that was it. And sometimes when you're forced with like into that mold, you see that people around you are kind of moving away from the idea that you're doing this and killing it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I got from that song.
Okay.
And maybe I'm overanalyzing it, but I think most vocalists will say, when you're analyzing my lyrics, whatever you take from it is what you take from it. So that's fucking killer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I always thought it was cool, and that's my favorite song on this record. It was a really good single. I think there's a video for it as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Bullet with the Name is obviously a jam, and the rest of the record is pretty consistent. I don't like it as much as the first one.
Okay.
It's my favorite record.
The first one rules. Like I don't remember how I found out about the band. I think it was another Tom O'Brien pick. Like stumbled across it, and it's just like, man, this album is the shit. Like it's got the song with the dude from Darwin's Waiting Room in it, which is awesome.
Yeah, and that band was cool too.
Yeah, their record, I listened to it like a while ago, and I was like, fuck, this album was so good.
What
like,
band?
Darwin's Waiting Room.
I don't. Darwin's Waiting Room.
Yeah,
Were they a new metal band?
Yeah, they were another like Florida band, and they kind of grew up together. I believe they had the one record, and then that was it.
That was it,
And I don't remember what happened. And I forgot. I think I asked Rob, like, the fuck happened to that band? I can't remember what he said.
That band was cool. And the name's awesome.
Darwin's Waiting Room.
I don't think
know.
you'd like it.
Yeah.
That's
I
actually
don't know
not
if
as
I
good.
like the name.
Not as good as I thought.
I don't know. They were a cool band, but
Darwin's Waiting Room. It's just weird. What
it's
the
weird.
fuck?
Yeah.
What is this waiting room? Waiting to see if evolution is real? Is that like the pun?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Their logo was a monkey.
Yeah, with the
and
weird
some weird shit. Yeah,
background.
They were probably a band that shouldn't have gotten signed necessarily because they stockpiled for 8 years all these songs.
Yeah. Like,
made their one record, and then they're like, "All right, time for a record." They're like,
we shot our load.
We have
you
no
got
songs.
the best of us. I'm sorry. We cannot write a record.
I'm sorry. You could sue us.
But yeah, no, that first record, Statement, was awesome. It was very much like that culmination of the new metal, alternative rock, kind of sound to it. The follow-up was even really good too, Development. I loved a lot of songs on that one too. Like one of my favorite songs of theirs is on that second album, Development, called Mint. Phenomenal song. They never play it live, those sons of bitches, but
that's always how it works,
right?
isn't it? Yeah.
But this album was like one of the ones where that's where I noticed more people were talking about this band. I'd be like, dude, that Bullet with the Name, like that song's the shit. Like a lot more people that for whatever reason just didn't grab onto them right away. But when this album dropped, that was the one that everybody was like, this is the shit here. I was like, oh,
that's so awesome that they peaked essentially after the movement.
Right. Yeah. Even post like new
super
metal.
Cool. Yeah. They have a Seven Dust sound to them in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And I know they did a tour with Seven Dust. I'm trying to think where I saw Nonpoint live. I actually want to say it might have been the one time I saw them was at the Double Door as them doing a headlining show.
Cool. Hell yeah.
Wow.
Totally outside their wheelhouse of it was an over 21 over show. But I'm pretty certain that show happened.
Nice.
Really cool band. Only band I remember, the first band I remember seeing with the drummer lined up on the side.
Yeah.
Oh.
Rob plays sideways.
Yeah, he plays
Really?
sideways.
Yeah.
Super weird.
Interesting.
And you're starting to see more and more of that now because everyone has an avant-garde setup, period,
Right.
to fit certain stages or to stick out. But he was the first dude. and it was always strange. And but
Did he play on the side of the stage too?
No, he would still be center, but just turned
around.
Interesting.
90 degrees.
I wonder why.
He took it from like some hair metal drummer from back in the day.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
And then it's also a thing of like he likes to be seen, just because like Rob himself is like a show and a half. Like it's phenomenal watching that guy play drums because he just beats the fuck out of his drums. He looks like he's having the best time of his life because he is. And like, yeah, it's just like you could just watch him and you'd be entertained.
Also,
you know?
he is, besides the singer, the only original member in the band.
Yeah, so they're the two original guys. I believe this album might have been the last one with the original guitar player, Adam Goldberg, I think was his name. And the bass player, like its initials, like JT or something like that. And I wish like it's tough. Working for that band is interesting because like I was a fan of that band before I worked for them. And so it's hard to not like go work for them and be like, let me ask you about all these questions I have for your album. Cause I don't want to hound them, you know, like they're dudes that they love to hang out and that's more than enough. But I'm curious as to why this was the album. Like we're going to do drop A, which was crazy, you know, like because everything else before that is, I should know cause I tech, drop C. And,
did everything they do onward from that, was that all drop A?
No. So I'm trying to look at their
drop
album,
A
like,
is
discography.
so low. And maybe it's just, I don't even know where to begin, but I cannot wrap my head around any music being played lower than drop C, basically.
It's interesting just because, like, you know, Elias isn't just screaming, he's singing. So to do such a drastic drop in your tuning is an interesting maneuver because then it, like, fucks with him, you know? But
Totally.
he does it. You know, it doesn't seem to be a problem at all. But, sorry, I'm trying to find what their whole...
Yeah, this is heavy.
Oh, I forgot about recoil. That's right. No. So they've gone back since the drop C. Like they've been using it more and more. And but the drop A stuff is interesting because
Macabre tuning, dude.
Really, they're in drop A.
I think I drop A on 7 strings.
Oh fuck.
Yeah, they were all 6 strings though. They never
non-point.
Yeah. And then eventually, Adam left the band. They got a new guy, believe from Illinois, Zachary Gibson.
I'm sure Zach Gibson,
which is the same name as the drummer of that other guy.
He used to be in Black
pretty
Dahlia.
sure this dude's name was Zach Gibson also.
Yeah.
What was the band he was in prior to this?
I have no idea. I have no idea where that guy came from. They did a couple records with him, and then eventually they came across my buddy Dave from the band In Cinema. I don't know if you remember that local band.
Yeah, it does sound familiar. That name.
Cinema?
In Cinema. Which was
space cinema.
INN Cinema. And so you're too young for this. You're old enough. There was a band in Chicago called Crash Poet.
Oh yeah, I know him.
Massive.
I've heard you talk about them.
Massive fucking band. In Cinema kind of like grabbed some of the dudes from that band, and that's what they became.
Crash Poet was your standard Saturday Night Metro band.
Yeah,
for a long time. And it's funny because a lot of those bands ended up doing very well for themselves, whether it be 5.0 got signed or Disturbed obviously did all that shit. I believe Mudvayne was more of a band from like Peoria, Bradley or whatever.
Peoria, yeah.
But yeah, we Chicago is the nu metal capital of the world, basically.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because there was that
so
era
weird
where like Roadrunner was just grabbing everybody that remotely
Slipknot
sounded like
which I talked about
yeah.
before. Slipknot did their first showcase for Roadrunner in Chicago.
Yeah,
I think they played the Metro, and they got signed, and the rest is history with that. So you need to come down and do it in Chicago, I guess, if they were going to fucking check your ass out. Yeah. You know. I'm trying to think of what label fucked with Nonpoint though. They weren't a Roadrunner band. It might have been Island Records or something.
I can't remember. They've been through a few labels. Like this one was on a different label. It was like the Beeler Brothers, I think, which they only did 2 albums with. I think it was this and the follow-up, and then they switched labels again, and then they've switched to several labels and several records.
Beeler Bros. Interesting.
I think the Beeler Brothers are based out of Chicago.
Really?
I think so. I might be wrong though.
Florida.
Oh, they are Florida.
Yep.
That's where their business is registered for tax reasons.
For tax reasons.
But
Yeah,
they live in
maybe.
Chicago.
They're actually in North Dakota, right? Is that what it
Oh,
was?
they had a bunch of. They had Ankla. I remember that band. They
Oh, dude,
had
Ankla ruled.
I don't remember
Death
that.
Stars.
Ankla was Puya, if you remember those
Yeah, I
guys.
remember
That was the
Puya.
band after Puya.
Oh, no shit.
They formed
Okay.
Ankla. Yeah.
I saw them at Ozfest 2007.
Ankla? Yeah.
I don't think
Really?
are they still a band?
Never-
Yeah,
No,
they are
Oh,
still a band.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
this might
man.
be
This
someone.
is the Puya coming straight to you. Hell yeah.
I might have to talk about them soon on this podcast.
That was a band I never really got into.
You should. They're fucking awesome.
Carnival was on that. Remember them?
Yeah.
Listen to Carnival. They were on that record.
I have a lot of
label.
friends who are wrapped up in that, whatever that style of music that Carnival does, they're huge
Yeah.
fans of, and they herald that band.
Yeah, I know a lot of friends.
There was
that
a
like-
show-
I have friends that
That's
like
their
them.
band.
There was a show that a bunch of dudes I used to be friends. I'm trying to pick who they were, but they told me that Carnival, it was their first time in the United States, and they were playing some weird club in West Chicago that was basically like a hip hop club.
Interesting.
Like whoever, no one knew what the fuck was going on. So they all drove because they're like, they're either going to say we don't recognize that club and we're going to miss Carnival, or they're going to say we're going to show up where the fucking show is and see how it works. And apparently it won.
Were they Australian? No.
Yeah, some weird
Is that what it
place.
is?
Yeah, they are Australian.
And they showed up, and it was a hip hop club. Totally couldn't handle the PA. Totally couldn't handle them. And
Sixth
at
was
one
on that label too.
at one point,
Six was on? Yeah.
at one point, the PA kept blew
Just
multiple
crapping out.
times during a set, and apparently a lot of people showed up for the show.
Oh, no.
And at one point, the sound guy just apparently screamed at the top of his lungs at the board. Ah!
What's happening? It's just like on fire.
That's
and he's
funny.
just screaming.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So, but that was Carnival's first time in
I don't think I've ever
Chicagoland.
listened to that band.
Yeah, if
But you're right. A lot of my friends that in that era,
I assume they're progressive,
they have to be some sort of like new metal, alternative
progressive metal.
thing. Yeah. Judging by the friends of mine that
Carnival?
really like, yeah.
They're more like how do I describe it? It's almost like Tool me. They definitely have that like proto gent influence. Like there's a lot of like on that first record they put out, there's a lot of Meshuggah worship type shit.
Okay.
And then they started moving into the moodier Tool-esque type stuff. I never really saw any new metal-y shit in them though. Like maybe back in the day and I didn't know of it. I'm not too familiar with their shit, but I know that record Sound Awake, their second album, is like the seminal Carnival record. Like I know guys that have that tattooed on their chest and shit. Yeah, I shit
Whoa.
you not. You might know them too, but I'm not going to say it until the show
They
is
should
over.
remain nameless. They're not in the band, right?
No, they're just,
somebody
it's a
I
buddy
know?
of mine. I don't know if you know him or not.
Oh,
You
okay.
might.
All right. Someone who has the
Man.
Carnival tat across their chest DM'd me because I want to know who you are.
Yeah, I'll tell you who it is after this show. But there's that. I
Man,
know,
band
like
tattoos is
that's one of
dedication.
those bands I feel like came to light because of guys like the Born of Osiris dudes really jocked that band hard when they were like when Sound Awake came out. Same with Bulb from Periphery made a big shit about that album when it came out.
When you have bands that are successful that liked your band that
Yeah.
wasn't successful, that means fucking everything.
Oh,
Actually, it's funny we bring that up because I believe the band Nonpoint took their name from a Christian metal band that sounds similar to Nonpoint that they were all fans of.
Really?
Yeah.
I've heard a bunch of different
From
That's another one
Florida.
I've never asked them
There was
about.
I forget the name of the band, but
should
they
just text
did,
Rob.
and it was they were just fans. When you grow up in a regional scene, Believer, yeah. Believer was almost a
technical thrash metal band.
Yeah, it was thrashy.
Christian.
Okay, so
Christian,
that was
yeah.
probably Rob's. So Rob is a huge hair metal and thrash enthusiast. Like
I thought you were gonna say Christian.
massive.
He's a huge
He's a
Christian.
He's a huge Christian. No, he's a big thrash dude, and like you wouldn't guess that when you hear Nonpoint, you know. But if you ever like get to jam with Rob, it's like he wants to do that. It's so fun. They have those moments in their songs,
Yeah,
here and
totally.
there where he gets to do it just a little bit. But yeah, dude, one of my favorite moments was we were on tour and we're driving, and they would just always play like VH1, and it would be hair metal hour.
It's so cool the idea of being on tour and having a TV.
Oh, I know. It's
It's
so
sitting on the
nice,
highway.
dude. It's
Oh,
the best.
God.
And I just remember it was the end of the night, so we were like winding down. Everybody's like tired, and they like to play the game of like guess what the next band's gonna be, you know, and what song and what band. And I'm like, Rob, I was like, this is not my world. I don't know any of it. He would just get so jokingly mad at me. He was like, he goes, what the hell, man? Why don't you know any of this? I was like, hair metal was never my thing. I don't know it. I'm sorry. He's like, God damn it. But he was good at it because he knew so many.
That's really cool.
And I just remember at one point he's like in his bunk, but it's close enough to the door that he could still kind of see and hear what's going on in the lounge. And it was that band. It's like a Japanese.
Was it
one word.
Riot? No.
Loudness?
Not loudness.
Loudness.
Yeah. Why did I say Riot?
And
They're
I
not
just
from Japan.
remember like it came out of the TV. Everybody was like, what the fuck is this? And
Loudness,
you hear
bitch.
Rob just go, loudness, and like name the song. I was like, what? And I turn and he's knocked out. Like he just said it and passed out. I was like, amazing. They always cracked me.
You know what's the funniest thing, which is I don't know if Nonpoint, when you were on this tour bus, was it just Nonpoint's tour bus?
Yeah.
The number one thing I love is like Warped Tour culture, where it's these, you're doing sheds and you if you ever look at a Warped Tour schedule, for example, there'll be one day where they're in Buffalo, New York, and the next day be in fucking Nashville or something crazy.
It's insane. Yeah.
So they tell you that literally a van is not built to handle this travel in a day.
Sure.
So you need to have a bus. Now, these bands that are opening these shows are poor and they're
van. Yeah.
So here's what they do, which is it's almost like pairing off with a
I gotta use the bathroom. I'll be right
science partner in class where they say everyone pair off.
Right.
You need to make friends with a band, even if you don't know them, and say we're going to rent this tour bus together and split
the cost.
So even if we don't like each other, we need to exist to each other on a huge summer tour in close quarters. And then I hope I like you.
Right.
Now,
to God
if you're every time I die doing that, you probably have your pick of the litter. Like we want to hang out with our friends in this band, and we want to do that. But imagine when the partners start dwindling down, and you're like,
right, it's down to the weird kid or the like, oh fuck, yeah, damn it, the one that's constantly
we're a metal band. We have an Irish punk band in our van and a rapper.
Fuck, this is what we're down to. Oh, I should have picked sooner. Why did I do it sooner?
And then the best is this, which is when the Warped Tour has the random off day every week or so. You have to play an off night show in the middle of nowhere with your weird Irish punk band,
or they have to just sit fucking side stage and be like, "Yeah, this is cool." I guess like fuck.
Dude, we're bringing through a metal band, an Irish punk band, and a rapper's gonna open. Just give us a door deal, dude. We should draw 100 people. It'd be awesome.
Just give us a couple bucks. It'd be fine.
Which is fine if you're doing an off day in a third like a C market and you're getting paid. 100 people are showing up and paying. That's rad.
Fuck it.
Everyone's be like, you're gonna be celebrities there the next week. So fucking funny. But yeah, that's how it worked, man. It's great.
Yeah, no, it was fun. Unfortunately, I don't work for them as much just because they are able to do long tours, like 2-3 weeks at a time. And I just can't take that time off.
And then also it's awesome. They could do 2-3 week runs and don't have to. The festival circuit's great when you're playing an area that is willing and waiting for you, where it's, I don't want to say it for lack of a better description, a NuMetal fest, but it's a fest that caters to that in the middle of kind of like a Wisconsin or something.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to go great. And, it's hard, which I find sad, but every band chooses their own path, where a lot of bands will tell me, and I'm not saying Nonpoint's not, I think maybe they played Bottom Lounge, not recently, but in the last 5 years or so.
Yeah.
And that's cool because Nonpoint's one of those bands that could still play Chicago.
Oh, yeah.
And some bands are like, we are not allowed to go there. We're not allowed to play New York City. I heard an interview, if anyone is...
Why is that?
This is an example, which is if anyone's a fan of, there's an 80s metal band who I love called Jackal.
Oh yeah,
I've heard of them.
So Jackal,
I think I've seen them live. I'm working a show.
Oh sure, and they have to hammer certain markets, and they are not welcome in other markets. The dude goes, we have a record that literally went platinum or whatever. He goes, we cannot book a show in New York City to save our lives. We could drive an hour outside of New York City and play a club that's attached to a casino and draw a shitload of fucking people
pack that
place and make a bunch of money. We cannot play New York City. We cannot play Chicago. We could play the suburbs of Chicago all day fucking long. We are not allowed in the city. And it goes from there. He goes, we haven't played a traditional show in Boston in 30 years.
Wow.
But again, the burbs As long
Just
as you do that,
outside of it,
just
yeah.
outside everything. See, he goes, if you're a fan of us and you live in those big cities, which there are, he goes, I find it so ironic, and this is a great point. The Jackal fans that live in Boston will supersede the amount of Jackal fans that live in the suburbs of Boston that will go
Right.
see them in that area. So you're having so many people drive up from Boston out like to a suburb to see them, but they're not allowed to play Boston because it wouldn't draw. It makes no
Right.
sense.
It's weird.
It is very weird.
Well,
But it's mainly a cool thing, which is when you have a cool venue near Fenway or a rad area, Wicker Park or whatever, when you're walking a Wicker Park hipster or whatever, and you're walking around, you see Jackal on a marquee, you're going to be like, I don't want to
You're like,
live here.
"What? I
Yeah,
don't
fuck
wanna
this
put-"
place.
Yeah. Well, it's like we talked about, like culturally, how we kind
Culturally.
of throw it away as soon as we're done with
Yeah.
it, we're over it. And yeah, it's unfortunate because I don't know. Nonpoint does very well. They do very well in all these markets, like and headliners too. It's not just festivals; it's headliners, and
Which
they
is
do well.
awesome.
It's cool.
We
They
should
draw.
get Rob on the show.
You would probably actually do it.
Hit him up.
I should. I thought about texting him, asking him about the name. Like,
Yeah.
yo, what's the story behind that? Because I heard another story that it came from an old, I believe it was like a teacher that was missing a finger or something like that. So he would point, and they called it
Awesome.
point. That was the rumor I remember hearing growing up. Once again, never asked of that. I never want to bother him with that stuff. But yeah, that was also funny too when I got that gig because I knew the new members and they knew me really well. So it was like
Yeah.
Dave, Rashid, and Adam, and they knew that I had done work with Rick, who was on the show, Rick Tauber,
Oh yeah,
with his band. So they're like, oh, he's been on the road. He knows guitars really
with
well.
7 Days Sonnet.
Mm-hmm. And they're like, hey man, would you want to, tech for us? We're doing like a weekend thing, just 2 days. It's like, fuck yeah, let's do it, man. It'd be great to work for Nonpoint. Are you kidding me? I've been listening to him since I was a kid. Like, this is cool. They're like, all right, Rob's gonna call you. And I was like, what the fuck? So Rob Rivera calls me, and I'm just like, this is crazy.
Yeah,
I'm talking
that's
to the
awesome,
drummer
man.
From Nonpoint. Like,
That is
this
really
the
cool.
coolest
And
thing
he's like
ever.
the leader of that band, right? Kind of, in a way, or no?
No, Elias and
Elias
Rob
and
are
Rob.
really split it for sure.
Uh-huh.
Which I think is the reason why that band has been able to stay.
And do they
So
all live
long.
up here now?
No, so Rob lives like on the south side in the burbs, and then
Okay.
Elias lives in Michigan actually.
Michigan. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't. I thought Rob lived by like Schaumburg and shit.
No, that's like the Soil guy.
Soil guys.
And, well, Adam, the bass player, lives out in that area.
Okay.
Yeah, and then where's Rashid is? Yeah, not far from there either. And
Mhm.
then so eventually Dave left the band, and they got Brad or BC, who was in like Switched, which was Clint Lowry's little brother's band.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then he did something else too after that did well, not as well as Switched. And I met him briefly for like 2 seconds, and somebody was like, oh, this is, BC. And I was like, oh, hey man, nice to meet you. And all right, have a good one. And then that was it. Didn't see him for a little while.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, Nonpoint, I was like, yeah, we got a new guitar player. We got this dude. And I was like, I kind of met him. Like, I've heard good things. And when I met him, he was the sweetest dude ever. He's awesome. He's a big gear nerd too, which was great. So we hit it off really well with that, just talking gear the whole time. And he's a PRS guy, so that was fun.
Oh,
Talked
nice.
PRS a lot. And yeah, and then unfortunately, he recently left the band because
Rob?
Brad. BC, yeah.
Oh.
He started a vodka company.
What's
Sure.
A vodka?
Yeah.
Oh.
Food, I can't remember what it's called. It's a weird name. Based out where he's at in Ohio.
Cool.
Because he's got a kid and stuff, so he's kind of concentrating being
Mhm.
around for his kid, which is rough to do when you're a musician, you
Yeah.
know. And they tour a lot, so it makes it difficult. So then they got this new guy who I don't know who he is, but he's a Chicago guy, which probably makes things a lot easier than having to pick up Brad in Ohio.
Probably like the dream scenario of a family man that still wants to rock is being in a band that, he's like, I'm a family man. I got a wife, got 2 kids, live in the burbs,
Right.
blah, blah, blah. But they're peppered in through his ear are these festivals where it's, hey, babe, going away for the weekend. Take care of the
Right.
kids. See you on Monday. And
Yeah.
it's like, yes, rocking, raging,
Yeah.
drinking, meeting
Fucking.
babes. Yeah.
Drinking.
See you on Monday,
Yeah, doing cocaine. Come back. Hey.
They're not big drug guys, which is always funny.
I'm sure they're
not
not.
even big
Yeah, they don't-
drinkers, which was always funny. Which is why I liked working with that band
Because they were like not shitty.
yeah,
you-
no,
when-
they
when
weren't
you have
getting
your
all
shit
fucked
together-
up every night and
Yeah.
like At
that's
most,
good.
it was just Elias and Rashid smoking weed in the back.
I would
lounge.
like to smoke
It was
weed
so
with them.
fucking funny. That's all they ever did.
I would like to smoke weed.
Played
with
video
them.
games and smoked weed. In the
I would
back.
love to do that.
And like Rob was like the straight guy, who never really did anything. But there was one night, it was the last night we had on tour, and we had this merch guy that was god awful at his job, and he like,
how are you bad at merch,
dude? I don't know. It was
properly
his
or whatever?
first time ever touring.
We have a friend that's bad
And,
at merch.
What are you talking about? We have the greatest merch guy ever.
That only worked one show for us.
But no, so this kid ends up just shit in the bed horribly, and Rob was so pissed and like, get the fuck out of here, and literally took all his possessions, they were in the bunk, and just threw him out of the bus.
Whoa.
Because the kid talked back to him. It was a whole like,
Oh wow,
this
that's
kid,
pretty brutal. Then
this kid was dumb, man,
You on
and he was an asshole and was being a jerk to those guys, and it was just like, yeah, dude, what are you doing? Like, this is
Sure.
the last night. All you have to do is be cool, do your job, pack up the fucking trailer, go ahead and fuck around, and then you get to go home. Like, you get to drive, you free ride back, you know. So they get in this whole thing, kicks him out, and
where did they kick him out of the bus though? Like at his house though, right?
no, hell no. We were in North Dakota. We were in Minot, North Dakota, which is 30 minutes south of Canada.
Wow. So
And that
what
kid was from
happened?
like Indiana. So that was
He
the
must
tour.
have really pissed him off.
Yeah.
I would have just been like, dude,
Well-
just be quiet for a few hours. You'll go home. You never just see us again for the rest
So
of your
this,
lives.
okay, so what happened was it was a headlining show in Minot, North Dakota, at a place called the O, the Original. Which is
Okay.
a great fucking venue. It's awesome. It's the shit. It's kind of a built-in crowd because there's a military base nearby.
Totally.
So that
Oh,
all
they
those
love
dudes
shit
come
like
out.
that.
It's awesome. Like,
What up, USA?
great crowd. Everybody's super cool. And so this dude decided that was the night that he was just gonna party because he was like, "It's my last night. Like, who gives a shit?" It must have
merch
been
guy?
Yeah, it must have been his mentality. And like
I
throughout,
hate people that it's always it's my last day here or last night.
I
Who
gotta go
gives a
hard,
shit?
right?
Yeah.
Danny,
And-
cough, cough.
Yeah. But there was always issues along the way where you're like, oh, there's something off with this guy, but whatever. Like, we'll be nice. It's his first tour. Give it the benefit of the doubt. But this last night, he ends up fucking off. He just disappears, right? I'm trying to take gear apart. I look over and I see the dude, like the non-point dudes, like Rashid and Adam and Rob, like scrambling, grabbing merch, like, and selling it. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And I run over there. I'm like, yo, is everything all right? And they're like, I don't know where the fuck so-and-so went. I was like, here. I was like, do you need a hand? They're like, no, we got this. Just keep doing the equipment. And I was like, all right. And so Rob's like, I'm going to find this motherfucker. And Elias is like, oh, we're going to find him. So they dip. They're looking for this kid. They find him in like the beer garden, smoking and drinking and just having the time of his life, right? And Rob's like, what are you doing? He was like, oh, he's like, come on, man, I'm just having a good time. He goes, yeah, I get that. He goes, but you're working. Like, we're not done. Like, we have merch sales going on. Like, you need to go back to the booth. Kid's like, fuck off.
Whoa.
And that's the end of that. So Rob's like, get the fuck in there. And he's like, I'm going to kill you. And like, at this point, Elias shows up. He's like, Rob, go away. Like, he's ready to just pummel this kid in the ground. So Elias is like, he's stoned off his mind. So he's always fucking chill and just trying to be cool. Drags the kid back in and is like, hey man, like, can you just like do the merch? And it's like, you know what? Fuck you too. I'm like, why are you yelling at him? Like, he's on your side kind of, and he's being so nice. Like, stop yelling at him and just fuck off, man. Fuck you. I fuck this shit. And I was like, oh no.
Did you see it go down?
Yeah. Cause I'm still working, moving equipment, and like, it's awkward. Like, cause it's relatively quiet in there and not having music blasting. There's only a few people in there because everybody's outside because it's nice. And this dude is just screaming at them. And I just remember, like, I was like, oh fuck, like, what's going on? And Rob comes back in and is like, get the fuck out of here. He's like, I took your shit. It's on the fucking side of the road. Go ahead and grab it and get the fuck out of here. And the guy was like, fine. He goes, I'll make my way back. And they're like, cool. I was like, what are you doing? Like, this is that tour with My Ticket Home.
Oh,
Yeah.
shit. That's weird.
So-
they toured with Non-Point.
Yeah. Those
You
kids
like
are-
that band, right?
Yeah, they're the shit, man. They're great dudes, and
Yeah.
the music's
A lot of
awesome.
people like that band.
Yeah, and so that kid asked, I was like, can I get a ride with you guys? And they're driving in a van. They're like,
Yeah.
they were going.
To Indiana?
They're more or less from that area. I think they're
Okay.
All right,
Ohio?
So I would have if
They
even
still a band, My Ticket Home?
I think they're done.
even
Yeah, I
even
haven't
if
seen
that guy
anything.
was an asshole and he got kicked out of their bus, I would have been like, just jump in the van and shut the fuck up. We'll
Yeah,
take you
they were
home.
like, but
I
he
don't want
was-
to ditch anyone, but
But
that
you know what sucked was the kid was wasted, and at that point, he was like texting like Elias and Rob and just being like, "Fuck you guys, I'm gonna get home before any of you." And they're like, "What are you talking about?" Like, we're already on the road. They're still there. Like, no, it's not possible. We live in Illinois. You live in Indiana. Like, you're not going to beat us home. I don't know what this is all about.
And it's
like,
not, who cares? It's within a couple hours of each other. And
whatever. You're going to be stuck in a small van instead of a nice bunk to lay in. You know, it's like, whatever. And I just remember we all get back on the bus after everything's all said and done. Rob's still like riled up. And he's like, we're all in the back because we're like kind of afraid of like Rob's, you know, steaming mad. Let's just let him have his own room for now. So we're all scrambled, like stuck in the back, and you know they're passing the bowl around, and then Rob comes in. He's like, "I need to smoke weed." And Lions just like, "All right." He's like, "Wait a minute." He's like, "Can we do this in the front lounge?" And he's like, "I don't give a fuck." He's like, "We're smoking." And he's like, "Yeah, all right." And so we just all pile back.
this
in
is
the
all
front
working out
lounge.
well for everyone
It's
now.
awesome. So we're just passing bowls around. And then what's great about the O is they had these like pretzels that they make in house. They're like the shit. They gave us bags of those. So we're all rip shit high just eating these pretzels. It was the best ending ever. Considering how that went down,
exactly.
best ending ever, man. It was one of my favorite tour moments.
That is a dope
And the
one.
look on Elias' face when he asked Rob, he was like, "Can we smoke in the front lounge?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "All right."
Game on.
Yeah, so this band, My Ticket Home, I forgot that they were that band that was like pop punk band, but then they turned into like a completely
nu
different
metal.
style. Yeah, they called it puke rock is what they're coining their
Yeah.
sound as.
I will listen to them. I've never heard them.
You
yeah,
might dig that. I think it's the second album.
yeah, only strangers only or whatever. Yeah, I know a lot of guys that did like that record, but I always, because I heard their first shit and I remember being
Totally
like,
different.
yeah, some dumb pop punk Rise Records shit that I didn't get, and then like when you were like, I like My Ticket Home, I was like,
what?
I don't. And like I remember you talked to me about that when like I first joined Roman Ring, and I was like, oh, what the fuck? Like I didn't
Very
get
random.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I thought it was the pop punk shit, but then like another buddy of mine was like, have you heard their new stuff? And I'm like, no, like with a band name like My Ticket Home, that's my ticket to not listen to them. So like I immediately thought, I was like, I would hate this, and I was like, whoa, this is like not pop punk.
Yeah, not that album
Yeah.
at least. Yeah, you might dig it because like it was funny like talking with those kids. They were bringing up like nu metal bands and like, yeah, we've been listening to like nu metal so much because we've been getting into it, which is kind of influencing the sounds. Like, yeah, you can tell I'm old. I figured that out. And it came to a point where they were asking me about nu metal bands because there were so many that they hadn't heard of.
Oh yeah,
I'm like, oh, you gotta check out this band, that band.
nu metal is one of
Like,
those
you wanna
genres
talk about it,
that
we'll talk about it.
you know. It's funny, which is if you don't pick the brain of an OG, I don't know how some of these bands are going to get found by these dudes. Like Drain STH. Who the fuck would know that band existed?
Right.
Basically, you know. And they got pushed too, doing an Ozfest, all that shit. So you have to talk with an OG and then say this band existed. Go look them up. You'll be able to find the shit, and then you go from there.
Right.
But when thrash metal had its resurgence, it seemed like everyone knew the bands,
Yeah.
even the deep cut bands. And nu
Yeah.
metal was always a little different, mainly because it was, I think, a lot of the bands shouldn't, even though they put out rad records, some people thought that they shouldn't have existed, and definitely got. But it was everyone was grabbing nu metal bands, just putting out records with
Well,
them.
it was an oversaturation of the market.
Way oversaturation.
It became a point where I don't know where it was. There's a tipping point in music because you know, back in the day, being a musician was difficult because the gear was so fucking expensive. The ability to tour was so difficult for whatever reason. But then there is that tipping point where the gear became easier to access. You can buy it anywhere. You know, venues were everywhere, even big or small, it didn't matter. So then that market just blew up. And it was around the era of like nu metal, it seems.
It really
like, where
was.
it really like anybody could be a musician.
Mhm.
You know, it wasn't a very like
Yeah.
difficult thing to get into, it seemed like.
The only thing was though, which is the era before that, in the 80s, if you had a guitar, had a little bit of a look to you, had a little bit of sound to you, you'd probably get big.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
you can jump off
nowadays,
of that.
that is the bare minimum to get anything rolling. You need to have all those things, or else no one will talk to you. The littlest club in your city,
Right, doesn't matter.
yeah, you need to have all that shit, or else you're labeled as a shitty band.
Right.
You know, and it goes from probably being a signed band to at least having your foot in a door. You know, that's
Yeah.
it.
Mhm.
There's a big difference now, so it sucks because there's so many great bands out there, so many great bands that will never get a proper shot, or they have to make their own opportunities where they're making the most of whatever cards they're dealt. You know, living in weird areas or having a sound that's kind of passe or not the cool fucking thing at the moment. Sucks. but that's what we're living through right now, you know?
Yeah. I thought the 9-point record was all right. Not my favorite thing, but the riffs were cool. There was some cool riffs. There was that low tuning definitely was like, oh, this is cool. And Elias, while I don't like his vocals, I think he's a good vocalist. Like, he sounds very unique and he sounds like he gives a shit, which is really cool. Cause like, I don't know, like I feel like a lot of the times with bands like that, like the vocalist could be a make or break it point for a lot of people. Like a lot of people that are just listening to it for accessibility. But I think he's good. The hooks are definitely there. It's one of those albums where it's like, okay, I get like halfway through it and I get it. But then by the second half of the record, I'm like, all right, when's it done? When's it done? And like, finally I got to the point where I was listening to bonus tracks. I'm like, oh, okay, I see what's going on. Yeah. But yeah, it was cool. It was cool. I never really listened to Non-Point. I know that they were never like the big,
there.
The A-list new metal band. But I could see them fitting in more with that Seven Dust side of things.
Oh yeah,
rather than like
I've done plenty of festivals where it was 9 Point and Seven Dust.
Rather than like the Corns or like the Limp Bizkits or stuff like that.
No,
and even it's like definitely has more of once again that more like I don't want to say rock vibe, but less
ignorant.
Yeah, definitely a lot less ignorant.
Ignorant will like I use that term a lot to describe things positively.
Sure.
Which is when you hear an ignorant ass breakdown, it's the shit.
Yeah, it's like, nasty, gross,
and
disrespectful. Yeah.
I love ignorant parts in songs.
Me too.
So, but Non-Point doesn't have like any of that ignorant elements in their music.
Yeah.
And neither did Seven Dust, really. Korn had a lot of them. Limp Bizkit had a lot of them. Different types of new metal, you know?
Different strokes for different folks.
Yeah, exactly. Korn did get ignorant at times for sure.
Do you know what's funny? Reinventing the Steel, I think, is the only Pantera album I don't have a copy of.
Oh, I wish I still had mine. I'd give it to you.
I'll just buy one.
Really?
I should get it.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
Really,
I always liked
really
that
cool record.
I had a burned copy
people
of it.
Didn't like that record for some reason.
It's hard because when you're a band that has made your great records, it's really Pantera was about a record away from having a great record. Like their last great record was going to come out. It's just they never got.
They just and
it's hard to do that. Where when you have Metallica has a problem with that. Where their last record, Death Magnetic. Wait, no, there was one after that, right? Hardwired to Self-Destruct was their last one. Really good record. Really great jams on it. It will never compare to their first 5.
No way.
And
it's like it doesn't even count as a record.
It doesn't even. Those records are so perfect. It was such a moment in time. You can't go back. You can never catch lightning in a bottle again. They don't need to. They need to put out really good records. Maybe have songs that get wrapped in their set list. But for the most part, it's all the OG shit.
Yeah.
And there's nothing to fault bands with that. You know, we're just happy they're still like kicking and doing it. And,
of course. That's exactly what it's like with Metallica too. It's like, do I like any songs from Hardwired? I don't think so. But like, it's cool to see that they're like a band still, and they still give enough of a shit to put out new music. But it's like, I mean, it's the same thing where it's just like, I'm listening to this and it's like, all right, it's these guys playing, but it almost doesn't feel like a new Metallica record. It's just like they're putting out songs. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's interesting that you say that because I feel the same way. It's like, it's cool that everybody gets to see they're still a band, and everybody's going to be sad when those guys start to fucking either keel over or just like not do it anymore.
I really hope that they are healthy, and I think that they have the money and smarts to be healthy people.
Yeah.
Because
I don't know, they all look pretty good right now.
They look really good.
Yeah, they look great.
They actually look surprisingly good.
Yeah.
I hope we get 20 more years of Metallica.
I would be surprised. Yeah.
Did you hear S&M 2 yet?
Yes, I did. And
is it cool?
I had one grievance with it, which is S&M 1 happened.
I loved it.
And I
remember
fine.
Like watching the shit out of the videos of that.
Yeah.
So awesome. All I said was this, since Metallica has such a vast catalog, that S&M 2 be all new songs.
Same.
I'm not saying like new songs. I'm saying songs
different songs.
Yes, exactly.
That's my same gripe too, dude. Exactly the same.
I thought initially they might have had the balls to do it, and then my friend Roger goes to me. He bought one. He got like an advanced copy or something, or bought it like a pre-sale. I go, like, let me know the fucking track list, and he named a bunch of songs that weren't on the first one. So I'm like, that's rad, cool. But then he named "Room the Bell Tolls" and all that shit that was on the first.
Yeah, Master of Puppets.
And I'm like, we don't need that.
Yeah,
what we really
hits.
What we really need is this, which was it was at that one venue. I think it was over 2 nights. Which is the Oracle Arena where fucking Golden State Warriors play. They needed to do the set, which is essentially a double set, 20 songs, all new songs, not from the first one. Then for the fans who were there chilling, they say, okay, let's jam on some old ones for you guys. And then they could do the new shit. But that's where the record starts and ends. And then the bonus tracks could be that shit. The newer versions of that.
Sure.
But
I don't know. Wouldn't it be like they kind of have to play those songs, right?
I would say this, which is...
Well, no, because there's also like the beast, because like when they did the original S&M, that was after Load and Reload. So they were also doing like B-sides from, like, not the big tracks from Load. And same on this new S&M 2, there's still like weird, like it's the same songs. It's like there's songs from Load that weren't the big hits, and it's like, why are they doing that again? They already did that. Like I'm like, oh, because they probably did it before and realized it worked, but it's just, it's very strange. I think they even do No Leaf Clover again.
And that's a song that we don't need two versions of.
No, we don't.
It's a great song.
It is a great song, dude. I've always, and I think I've said this to you too, man. Max has said this, and he kind of implanted this idea in me that, like, I wish there was a record Metallica did in between Reload and Saint Anger that was I Disappear, No Leaf Clover, Minus Human era shit. Because I love it. And Nate called me on the phone and railed me for liking I Disappear the other day.
I love I Disappear.
It's such a good song, and Nate's like, that song's
Gabe was
lame.
yelling about that as well.
I Disappear rules.
It does.
And I'm going to listen to it as soon as I get in my car.
Oh, that DJ turntable turned down. It's awesome. Yeah, Nate's like, yeah, that's not good. You can't say that.
My friend,
you can't, Nate.
My friend James, who now lives in Turkey.
You can.
My friend James, who lives in Turkey, he knew I once booked, or I had a hand in booking a Metallica tribute band. I think it was Battery at Ultra Lounge when I used to book there. And him and his friends were running around Logan Square for, I want to say someone's birthday or some shit, bar hopping. And he goes, we're going to stop by the show. I go, yeah, you guys are welcome. Great. He went to the front of the Ultra Lounge, if everyone remembers it. And just between every song for about 10 in a row, between each song would just go, I disappear.
Fuck. Yeah.
I disappear.
Would they not play it?
They would not play it. And the drummer's like, and he kept relentlessly yelling, I disappear. Close fucking
Holy
quarters.
shit. That's awesome.
I love that song.
I know.
But wouldn't it have been cool to hear like a record that sounded like that?
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like a little heavier than Load and Reload, but like also just like weird radio hits. Minus Human, I love that song.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, it just sucks that they never. And yeah, that was my same
that song?
That was another S&M exclusive.
Okay.
Yeah, like they only.
I thought so. There was like an original.
There's two original songs. It was No Leaf Clover and Minus Human. No Leaf Clover was like the single. Like that was on the radio and shit.
Yeah.
I don't know if Minus Human made it to radio or not.
And then I Disappear was obviously Mission Impossible soundtrack.
Right. Yeah. And then Saint Anger, which I like, but I still wish I could have heard like that era. Like
we would be thinking about Saint Anger as a much better record if, say, those three songs made it to Saint Anger.
Sure.
And then also we erased 3 bad Saint Anger songs and maybe fucked with the mix a little bit.
Yeah.
Because everyone hates the snare. Everyone would be like, that's a pretty fucking rad record.
Yeah.
If I Disappear was the lead single off Saint Anger, everyone would be like, all right, I get it.
They did it again. All right.
And like, I love Load and Reload. I love those albums.
Me
like,
too.
I think they're great.
Me too.
I love that era of the band.
Me too.
Like, it's just so cool. And it sucks that like all that shit just is like, no. It's like, come on, guys.
No, it's
like,
awesome.
Get over it.
Yeah.
It is. There's so many jams. And like a lot of records that are essentially double records, everyone always says the same thing, which is, yeah, it really only needs to be one record. If they took out all those fucking bad tracks and combined to one record, it'd be like a baller record start to finish, which is true about Load and Reload.
Sure.
But it's Metallica. Let them do what the fuck they want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's some cool, weird shit they did on those records. Like, there's a lot of experimental shit on there. Like the Homeless Hobo song on Reload. I forget what, Low Man's Lyric.
Low Man's Lyric, yeah.
Yeah, like, that's a weird song. But they like, so like, S&M 2 now is out. So it's got like the hits from S&M 1, like a lot of like the old songs that they did. Including
There's a shitload of songs on that first one, right?
And then they did a lot of shit. They did songs from Hardwired. They did songs from Death Magnetic. Like I think they did Unforgiven 3.
That's what album that's on?
Which is like It was on Death Magnetic, yes.
Okay.
Unforgiven 3.
Yes.
Which not a good song in my
Yeah.
opinion. Like that's kind of where I fall off. Is like, you like Unforgiven 3?
I don't know.
I thought you were about to be like, I love it.
He didn't know.
Unforgiven 2 is awesome.
He didn't
And I
know-
like the original as well.
Yeah.
No, the original's amazing.
I love
The
the
original-
Solo in the original is like,
Oh, it's
shit.
so
But
good.
2's got
the
that
best.
sick signature hillbilly Hetfield
I
riff at the
know.
beginning.
I do love that song.
Or where he's like,
Oh, that riff. Okay, yeah.
It's like way more advanced hillbilly shit. Yeah. It's like Unforgiven 1, but like they added a dose of like
A little hick in
country.
there.
Yeah.
The Unforgiven one is the most epic.
Yeah, that's the
It's-
best
song-
one, obviously.
yeah,
That song's
Yeah.
insane, and the solo is one of Kirk Hammett's
So
finest
what's-
album
What's the
hours.
third one like?
Not
Oh,
good.
dude.
Really?
I couldn't even sing
I think
it
there's
to
a-
you.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll have to check it out.
The best is Bill's face when you mention Unforgiven 3.
He starts
It was a
smiling.
revelation.
Oh, yeah,
didn't
you
know
don't
it
know.
existed.
Yeah. Well, now you know. And it's been out for over 10 years.
Yes,
that
it is.
song.
Yeah, that's what's funny about it.
Really?
Yeah. Death
a-
Magnetic was what?
10 years
08?
ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Weird. Huh. All right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the
Weird.
last
That whole album is weird.
Studio, right? Record? That was the
No,
last.
Death
No,
Magnetic was the last one.
No,
Yeah,
no,
that's
it
what I'm
wasn't.
saying.
No, it wasn't. It was Hardwired or Self-Destruct.
Hardwired.
Yeah.
That's
When did
Hardwired
that
was the
come out?
last one.
That came out 4 years ago.
Okay. So
I wanna
not
say-
Is that it? I
Yeah.
feel like it's older than that now, but you could be right.
And it's a double album as well.
It's a double
Yeah.
album? No
Hardwired,
shit.
yeah.
I've never been the biggest Metallica fan, but I do enjoy that.
Well, if you just heard that Unforgiven 3 exists, we assumed that you weren't the biggest fan. 'Cause
Yeah.
That's such a jam.
Anyway, Dead Air. Go on.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
That's all right.
somebody
I
just
was
called
looking
me. I
up
had to
stuff.
tell them that. I'll call them back later.
Fuck off.
But
Working.
Good shit.
yeah,
I don't know-
good shit.
I don't know if we're going to wrap it on that. but-
Yeah, I don't know. We
Talking
really,
about Metallica?
we kind of
Yeah.
talked like, or I think we said everything we needed to say about the new metal records.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Yeah, I liked. It was a fun listen. It was interesting because it was all shit that I didn't not like any of the records. Will I listen to all of them again? I doubt it, but I did. I enjoyed them more than I expected.
You know, it's funny because we look at our greatest hits of all the records we picked so far, and there's so many records that every time I come in here, I'm like, I'm going to bring those up next time.
Yeah,
And these are all either they range from being fucking straight up classics
yeah,
to being cult followed pseudo classics to being just rad records with some jams on it.
sure, yeah.
So you're going to get a well rounded dose of both. I don't think we've ever dealt with any clankers, but
No,
there have been some records where, it just was a record that maybe sounded good, but only had a couple of good songs on it. But then
Sure.
there's just records that were fucking banger records from this era, and we haven't even scratched the surface.
I know.
No,
Yeah,
I know.
There's so many.
I almost
Very
picked Toxicity. I was that close, but I didn't.
That's
Oh,
one that
that's
could
a
be
good one.
interesting to be talking
Yeah.
about down the line.
That was like my big new metal record back in the day. That was it for me.
Well, we'll
Was
save that for
Toxicity.
another
yeah.
time. That's
That
going
was
to be
a
an
fun
interesting fucking, and the first one too. First
Oh, yeah.
system.
Hell yeah. Ooh, yeah. Yeah, I was gonna I had a couple picks in mind that I wanted to do. One of them I almost was gonna do Limp Bizkit, but then when you brought up Deftones, I was like, we can't have two big bands like that clash. on
Yeah.
there, so we'll save it for another one. And then another one, it was funny, it might have thrown you off. Like I messaged you about it weeks before the last one we did, where I was like, are we counting Rammstein as like a new metal band? Like,
I
and I
think
would say
so.
yeah. I mean,
I would definitely say yeah.
Yeah,
they're kind of like an industrial thing.
yeah,
which
but
is
they
its
still
own-
fit in
If
with
they-
that whole
They
era.
came up in that new metal.
Yeah.
The way I
for
look at it
sure.
is, if you're contemplating whether or not they're a new metal band, that means they
They
are.
probably are new.
I wanted to. I'm not going to do one, but I was really stoked on a record I heard recently. At least as stoked as I could be from a newer band coming out with a new record. By that band Cane Hill.
Oh yeah, you like them?
I heard it, and it reminds me of new metal meets like Vision of Disorder type shit, and kind of like the Forge. Like it makes sense for them to play
That'd be
that vibe or whatever.
Place.
But I thought it was rad, and it sounded good, and that's a newer record that'd be interesting to bring up, kind of like we did the King A10
Yeah.
record. You know, they definitely have a new metal influence to them. So
Yeah,
I do
oh,
like
yeah.
them. I thought they were pretty rad.
That's cool.
Cane Hill, another Rise Records band. I remember
really?
when I thought they were trying to be like this Issues clone, a clone
Yeah.
of that band Issues that I like a lot, that
You-
like pop band.
Yeah, you've mentioned them before on here. Issues.
Yeah, they just
So
got into
is-
some shit. Their singer just got their own. They used to have two singers. They were like a screamer singer type. Screamer got kicked out because they were like, we don't need him because we're moving in a different direction. And their singer just got booted for doing some sexual misconduct type shit. So
they're literally dealing with issues now. So
yeah, they are dealing with big issues now.
Careful what you wish
That's a
for.
hard
It
move
bums
too.
me when you mention that band because I always immediately think of Korn.
Yeah.
I see issues.
They couldn't be more different. They couldn't be more different
I
than
know.
Korn. Yeah, they're sick though. But anyway, yeah.
Take your word for it.
Deftones, Non-Point, Drain
Drain
STH. Check them, listen to them, love them, hate them, do whatever you want with it.
Thanks for having me back as usual.
Yeah, of course, man.
See you in a couple months or
Yeah.
however it works bi-monthly.
Yeah.
I don't even know at this point how many
we
weeks it'll
really
be.
messed up our system. But I mean, we have a system. It's just predicting.
Are you guys at your
Yeah.
what number show are you guys at right now?
166
Awesome.
or 7. This might be 7.
67.
This is 6 or this is 67 or 68.
I think so.
166 was Gabe, right? Or no, that was me and you. And then you and Gabe will be 167. I think this is 168. Something like that. Yeah. We're coming for you, Jamie Josta.
When we get to episode 420, we'll just get rip shit high for 2 hours straight.
Will you get high?
No.
I do that already, dude.
You guys rule.
Thanks,
Yes,
man.
thank
Thanks
you
for
guys
coming,
always
dude.
for
Yeah,
coming.
thanks for
Anything
listening,
to
guys.
plug? Oh, we have a song.
Yeah.
We have a new cover of the song Popular by Nada Surf.
Yeah.
That just dropped. Check that out. Besides that, we have no shows to plug, obviously. So
Yeah, I have nothing at all.
I got nothing.
Check out all the bands we just talked about. White Pony's 20 years old, so I heard that they're
Man,
supposed to be
crazy.
releasing like a special edition called Black Pony or something like that this year. That's supposed to have a bunch of like bonus featured, like remix type shit.
Really?
Yeah. So keep your eyes peeled. I don't know.
I wish they could just put the goddamn song from The Crow on one of these goddamn re-releases.
Deftones?
Yeah.
They did a song for The Crow?
The second movie, there's a song on there. It's the shit.
That's
It's awesome.
Crow City of Angels. It's on that soundtrack.
Okay. Do you know
That
what it's
song-
called?
I can't remember what it's called, but that song is like awesome.
Do you
And
know-
they're in the movie playing it.
Really?
Yeah, it's awesome.
Was it after White Pony or before?
That was before.
Okay.
It was around the fur era,
Oh,
like
okay.
around that.
Makes
And
sense.
you can't find it. I'm assuming the studio
owns the rights,
owns the
probably.
rights to it,
Yeah.
because they did come out with that album
B-sides.
with like B-sides
Yeah.
and rarities, which is fucking awesome because they do like No Ordinary Love by Sade.
Yeah.
I fucking love that
Whoa,
cover.
really?
Yeah, dude. And Simple Man.
Yeah, Simple.
Oh,
I heard.
I love that cover.
I played that at a wedding I DJ'd recently. Simple Man, the Deftones
Dude,
cover.
I love that
Yeah,
cover.
that's a
It's
really.
so
and I
fucking
hate
good.
Deftones covers in general, but that
Did
one's
they
a
do a lot?
They did a.
They used to do Weezer, which was
Yeah,
the
they did.
shit.
Yeah, I hated it. Say It Ain't
I
So.
loved it. Say It Ain't So.
I've seen them
But
play
I can
that
only,
live, yeah.
I can only
I
I
find
also
like a
hate
shitty,
Weezer, so I probably wouldn't like it
it's fine.
anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting album with that stuff on there.
They
for
just
sure.
released like a covers EP, Deftones. They did like
Oh.
I want to say a Cure song, a fucking Jawbox song, maybe a
They do a
Failure.
Jawbox. Jesus, I can't talk. They do a song from that band on the
Jawbox.
B-sides and rarities as well. Savory.
Savory, yes.
Yeah, that
yes.
song fucking rules.
Nice.
Both the cover and the original.
I've never heard of Jawbox. I've heard of Glassjaw.
No,
And Boxcar Racer.
Jawbox is like
Remember
another one of those
Boxcar
bands
Racer?
that, like,
Oh, yeah,
went
yeah,
under the
totally.
radar.
They were huge, dude.
I had the CD.
Speaking of covers, like that's another thing that always bothered me with the Non-Point dudes is like they did "In the Air Tonight."
Yeah.
and
Cool.
I don't mind the song; it is what it is. But it bums me out that so many people know them as that band.
That
Oh,
covered
that's
in the
how it
air
works,
tonight.
man.
Yeah.
Isn't that great? Like so many were like, "Oh man, this band does "In the Air Tonight." I was like, they've done a lot more.
Talk to Orgy about that,
And,
man.
yeah,
with
right.
Blue Monday,
Monday.
and versus every other thing they did.
Fuck, dude. And there was a time where I was doing a show with the Non-Point guys, and I think it was the sound guy. I was like, "Hey man, what's the set tonight?" And Rob was like, "Oh, I don't even think they had it written up, but he's like, I'm not sure. You know, we kind of wing it all the time." The guy's like, "You doing "In the Air" tonight?" And he's like, "No, I don't think so." And he's like, "Come on, man." He's like, "You gotta play it." And he goes, "I don't know if we're gonna do it. Like, it's I don't. I'm not sure." And the guy goes, "I'll give you $500." He's like, "Yo, we're doing "In the Air" tonight."
Awesome.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I guess they're doing "In the Air" tonight, and they did. It was awesome. The sound
Really
guy was
cool.
so fucking stoked.
Hell
It was
yeah.
great. Yeah. So yeah.
Dope.
For those of you listening, if you get to see Non-Point live, if it ever happens again, and you really want to hear any of their songs, I guess that's their price point.
The cost is $500.
$500. They'll play whatever you want
Sick.
because their discography is like insane, and their singles is just,
Oh yeah.
it's a massive list. Yeah. So their
Nice.
live show, it's just a grab bag of like all the hits, which is awesome. But anyway, thank you so much. That's enough of NuMetal for tonight.
You guys
Yeah.
rule.
Hell
Good
yeah.
seeing you. Stay safe, everyone out there. Chime
Peace
in.
out.
You guys rule.
we'll see you next week, hopefully with Alex and Ivan. So
The dream team.
Alex is down.
Cool.
Ivan, I'm still waiting to hear from.
That combo is called AI.
Yeah, AI, Alex, Ivan. Yeah, it's a dangerous combo as well. So
Yeah, we may or may not be doing that one live.
yeah, be careful, everybody.
For the sake of censorship.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I'll
Yeah,
see
thanks
you
for
guys
coming in.
later.
Hell yeah.
You guys roll.
And goodbye, everybody. We'll
See you
next
guys.
week.
Bye. Yo, yo, yo. Eddie Gobo here from Something Is Waiting. If you like Nothing's for No One, please please subscribe. Feel free to comment. Chime in. Let us know what you want to hear. Your thoughts. Thanks for listening. Bye.